Thank you all for coming out to tonight's City Council workshop. Please ensure that your phones are on silence. We will have our first presentation. Madam Secretary.
PR 24015, GRK Air Service Development and Rebranding Update.
Good evening, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. How y'all doing today?
Just fabulous.
Tonight, we're doing our Air Service Development Update. If you remember, we've been doing that now for about the last 3 years. And I have with me tonight Jeremiah Gerald from ASM, and he'll be doing the update for us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. It's always an honor to spend some time with you guys. It's great to be back in town, and this is about the third time I've given this presentation this week, so I should be pretty good. But I do appreciate, this is all strategic. Obviously we want to keep you guys up to date on what's going on, not only locally, but the industry in general, and talk a little bit about what the future holds and what our strategy is moving forward. So I'll get right into it because I know I have 15 minutes, so we'll push through. So a little bit, for those of you I haven't met, my name is Jeremiah Gerald. I'm the Senior Director of a company called ASM. We focus on route development and strategy for airports as it relates to relationships between the airport and the airline. I've been doing this for about 10 years on the consultant side. I've been in the business for about 20 years, started as a pilot, worked my way through the ranks of the airport industry, and then ultimately have the role that I occupy today. And I've been working with the Killeen, formerly Killeen Fort Hood, now Killeen Regional Airport, since about 2017. So just a little bit of refresher, a little bit of background. I know I've shared this before, but I want to give you guys a little bit of a refresher around this, the role that we actually play in this. So we don't walk into an office with an airline and walk out with a new route. It typically doesn't work that way. So ultimately, what we're doing here is we're trying to paint the picture more clearly for the community and translate that into a business case and deliver that to network planning teams for the airlines. So in order to do that, we ultimately act as liaisons or influencers in that process. So what we do here, we just left meetings today earlier at the airport educating local media. Monday we had meetings with our task force, so a lot of strategic meetings around keeping people up to date on what's going on within the business and what we need to be doing to move forward. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on what's going on in the industry here today, and then I'll give you some updates on some of the positive things actually that are happening in the clean market that I believe are going to help position us for success as we move forward into the next few years. But there are challenges. There's tons of external challenges to this process, and just some of these to list is understanding the types of carriers that are out there and how do we align our strengths with their strategies. So hub-centric airlines, obviously we have one of those that serves the market today in American. They fly to DFW, which is their hub. But we are targeting nonstop carriers, low-cost carriers to some specific markets. We've had many issues, obviously, coming out of the pandemic from an industry perspective. Aircraft delivery delays, staffing shortages, local economic issues, airline decision-making changes, and then, of course, we've got the big competitor to our south that has a lot of the airlines that we're pursuing. So we always have to overcome that challenge of what we call cannibalization, asking an airline who's already getting the traffic out of Austin to come serve the clean market is certainly a big challenge. So, but we'll talk about some of the ways that we're working with some of the carriers that may not even have a presence in Austin today. The other thing is we're competing against the rest of the country, not just Austin. We're competing against every airport in the country for these assets, right? So for these aircraft and for these pilots, because it's a very limited supply. So let me get into setting the scene. So this is just the rolling scheduled service charter passenger enplanements in the U.S. And you can see we've had a lot of shocks to this industry. We started, going back to 9/11. What I really wanted to show here is every one of these shocks, we always come out and we always come back to growth. Even with the COVID pandemic, even though it was a global, unprecedented event, you can already see that we have recovered from an industry perspective and moving more and more passengers as we move out of this pandemic, the issues surrounding the pandemic. Now, some of the challenges, I think, if I can get this thing, there we go, has been in the regional airport space. Ultimately, it's a pilot shortage issue that we've talked about before. During the coming out of the pandemic, a lot of the big airlines, the major airlines, have been scooping up a lot of the pilots from the smaller regionals, and they're doing it a lot faster than they have historically because there's a shortage. So it's put a lot of pressure on the smaller regional airports where we fit. So of about 324 U.S. airports, which represents about 76% of the regional airports, 30% of those airports they've lost on average about 30% of their flights. So we're not immune to challenges in that regional space. This red bar here speaks to the number of flights from U.S. airports based on category. We're in that red bar, which is that 9 or other category. We're not a small hub, medium hub, or large. So you can see from 2019, we had 2,690 flights on average daily. Now we're down to about 1,958. So that category has definitely contracted. So it puts a lot of pressure on airports like Killeen. The other thing, as we all know, United during the pandemic or coming out of the pandemic cut service from Killeen. College Station was the other Texas airport, Monroe, Louisiana, Alexandria in our region, as well as Destin. So there's a reason behind this, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but this fits within that category of pilot shortage, not having enough aircraft. So United had to make some cuts in order to stay competitive in some of their other markets. Get this thing, there we go. And then the last thing, where is opportunity? So when you look at this slide, I want you to pay attention to that top bar, which is the green bar, and that's where the growth is actually taking place. This basically speaks the number of origin and destination passengers by airline business model. So you can see the blue across the bottom is our mature legacy carriers, is what we call them, the American, the Delta, and United. Those guys have somewhat contracted, right? They've pulled down a lot of the service as we're coming into this past year. Where the real growth is really taking place is in the ULCC, which is what we call ultra low cost carrier category. With new entrants like Breeze Airways, the new David Nilman startup operation, Avelo, which is a spinoff of Allegiant. The CEO is a former Allegiant executive, so new opportunity to work with a similar carrier than Allegiant. But these are the ones that we've been having some conversations with and targeting with our business case. So we'll talk about what that business case looks like. But just to fast forward, so we know that that category is growing, but we also know that there's still headwinds in the industry. We always are looking at what are the challenges and the artificial ceilings that have been created that are keeping the airlines from deploying capacity in markets like Killeen. So one of the biggest ones now, if you look at that left side, is labor. Labor has creeped up. A lot of that comes through these union negotiations. Some pilots are making $500,000 a year now. It's pretty amazing what a pilot shortage will do to salary. But it's good and bad, because when those costs go up, the airlines have to make up the difference somewhere. And unfortunately, it's not happening with the fares that they charge. We have all experienced everything has increased, right? Inflation has caused everything to go up. Airfares are not immune to that. But this shows that the airfare that the airlines are charging hasn't been able to keep up with inflation. So there's still challenges with profitability within the industry. When you've got labor going up, you've got the volatility of fuel, of course, being extremely volatile, and then you have fares that aren't making up the difference. It's going to put pressures on the industry. And then the last piece, a lot of new aircraft orders in play now, but just because there's orders doesn't mean they're going to be delivered. So the new challenge now, if you look at that 2024, we've got a lot of delays as it relates to delivery of new airplanes. Some of that's coming out of the Boeing microscope challenges, right? They're under the microscope now because of some of the safety issues that we've seen over the past few years, which is slowing down production and slowing down getting those airplanes into the system. So I just leave you with that. There's headwinds. We never live in a perfect world, but there are opportunities as we move forward. Let me give you a little bit of background on what we're doing, though, just so you guys, just to put it into perspective. We don't want this to be a secret. We always want to be talking about the things that we're doing at the airport as it relates to trying to move the needle and position ourselves to take advantage of opportunities when the timing is right. So these are all the engagements that we've had with airlines. So from Roots Americas back in February 22, we could go back further than this, but I just wanted to show you the last couple of years. We've engaged and interacted with multiple airlines, and these are meaningful meetings. This isn't just a quick phone call. These are at a minimum a 20-minute business case discussion. You see this picture. This is what air service development is about. It's about bringing the community, the stakeholders from the region to the airline, In this case, we went to the American Airlines headquarters, remember last year, which was the largest delegation that American has ever taken into that facility. They talk about it to this day, which really, it's symbolic, but it's also strategic, right? We need all of the city, all of the departments, all of the stakeholders to be a part of this discussion, because that's what makes it work in the long run. So we just completed meetings in May with Allegiant, American Breeze, SkyWest, and United. We've been staying close to United, updating them on what's going on in the market. We believe that when the timing is right on the United side, they will be back in this market sooner rather than later, based on our most recent discussions. Also, it's about, again, engaging with the community. So we created a task force. As I mentioned, we had a meeting on Monday with our task force members, strategic members from the community. And it's about this. It's about updating them on what's going on, what can we do to move the needle, working together going forward. So many of those meetings over the past couple of years. And we have seen some results. So we were successful in 2020 in securing $1 million of federal funding. We now have what we call a funding for a minimum revenue guarantee program, which is a risk mitigation program to offset the risk associated with launching a new air service from Killeen. So we have that from the federal government until January of 2027. So all those things are strategic to putting them in the air service development toolbox. There's a lot of communities that can't say that they have this kind of risk mitigation. So when the timing is right, again, when we come out of this and there's the pilot shortage issue eases up a bit, airlines have the ability or continue to grow, get those aircraft deliveries, we're in a good position to take advantage of opportunities, and that's really what we've been trying to do. The other thing is you guys participated in the airport rebrand program. That wasn't just to create a new logo, it was to look internally at the airport to assess what is the value of being a Killeen right next to a big giant like Austin. We want to be the best number 2 that we possibly can be. We want to win in the categories that we know that we can win in, which is convenience, it's compassion, it's personal experience, and there's some cost savings elements from using Killeen as well as relates to time on road, time out of the office, all that good stuff. The other thing is we dig deep into the data sets, and I'll share some of these new data sets that we're looking at as it relates to population migration. That's the big story for Killeen, obviously, is this growth into our catchment area coming out of the Austin market. GDP growth and population means air travel, and I'll show you what it looks like in real numbers here. And then the last piece is we have been successful at working with American, our existing partner. Coming off those meetings that we had with them at the headquarters visit last year, we saw upgauging of aircraft. So we saw the E-175 and the CR-9 introduced to Killeen, and this summer we're going to get back up to 6 daily flights. So they'll be operating over 12,000 seats a month in the Killeen market. So they believe in it. They wouldn't do that if the market wasn't performing well, obviously, in today's environment. So I'll show you some of that here coming up. Just quickly to run through the rebrand process again, it was a very strategic process. 4-phase process, the research strategy, we listened to the community, we did focus group sessions, we did soft market research online. We had a brand in place prior to this, we just didn't control it. We didn't understand it, we didn't own it. So we went through the process to get our hands around it, and then from that, we created new logos, right? A logo, clean, nice clean logo. I think pulling out that tie to the base actually helps us because there was a lot of confusion around, is this a military-only airport? So all of that is starting to materialize as we see it now in the passenger numbers. But this is just one example of what came out of that. We also have guides. If you guys haven't seen this, we'll certainly get the airport to share it with you, but we've got things like mission, brand position, the attributes, what is our platform and promise, quick and simple, comfort and care equals fly closer, go further. All that came out of the rebrand process. And now we have guidelines to protect the brand. And then, of course, you see it visually in the advertisement and the products that we offer to the community. This is our new website. Also the new billboards that you guys may have seen around town. So it really means, it seems trivial, but that we need to stand behind what we say in our brand. We need to deliver when the passenger uses us, comes to the facility, and I believe Mr. Wilson and his team is delivering on the promise. So real quickly, I'll run through. This is just some of the stuff that we share with the airlines because I wanted you to get a kind of feel for the type of data that we're going through and what it means and how this moves the needle forward in air service development efforts. We know that the largest competitor obviously is Austin, a little over an hour to the south. We also know that things that drive air travel are moving in the right direction in this market. So if you look at the GDP for the Killeen-Temple MSA, it's up to $24 billion in 2022. 23 data will be coming out soon. We expect that number to go up even higher. If you compare that to another market in Brownsville, they have a GDP of about $14 billion, and they have some low-cost air service with Avelo that we're pursuing. So we always want to put our situation into perspective with a proxy market, and that's one we're using right now. The other thing is our population is growing dramatically. It's always grown every year because of the military retirements, but this is different. This is something different now. We're seeing population growth with high median household income, which is good for air travel, right? That's ultimately what we want to be seeing. If you look at our population within the MSA, it's about just under 500,000. When you look at Brownsville, they're about 425. So that population base with a higher GDP means that, as it relates to air travel, that's good for us. It bodes well for the comparison. We all know, of course, Fort Cavazos has been at the center of everything as it relates to air travel demand for the airport many, many years. But now we're seeing more of a diversification of passenger within our region, and it is because of that population growth. We know that the GSA City Pair program is extremely important, so we watch that closely. I don't want to go through the details completely of the United departure, but you can see the United's ability to win those city pairs had a huge impact on their ability to stay in the market. As you can see, they did well in 2019, but it slowly started to taper off because they couldn't get the frequency up in this market. They needed to operate at least 3 a day to win these city pairs. They couldn't get it up to 2, through the pandemic. So they were like, we got to leave. We'll come back when we got the resources to serve the market properly. So I fast forward through this. We know Texas is the #1 recipient of inbound migration. We use a company called Placer. We don't rely on census data. We rely on cell phone device activity in today's world. So we can see when a device resides in the region for a certain amount of time. We call that a new person that lives here, basically. So we know that Texas was #1 over the last 48. We also know that there's accolades and there's other studies that are being done, this U.S. News and World Report. We don't rely on these solely. Obviously, the way that they look at data is different. We back this up, though, with that real data that comes from the cell phone device activity. But it's interesting to see that Killeen is on this list of 25 different cities, Austin being number 12, Killeen number 20. And as we fast forward to 24, Killeen moving up to the second fastest growing city ranked with the U.S. News and World Report, along with many other accolades. Also, the population, again, that I mentioned that's moving here is a valuable population. We're ranked number 4 based on the people that have moved here with incomes above $200,000. So that is huge for air service development. It's a huge story to tell. It's going to help us moving forward. Fast forwarding where we stand today with American, obviously looking at the trend, we were doing really well as we moved into the pandemic as far as capacity growth. Of course, we had a roller coaster ride like many airports. We had a great year in 21. United, of course, I told you the reasons why they departed, but American's starting to make up some of the difference of the United departure now. You can see that green area there. As we get into the summer months, that departure per day each way, we're going to be up to 6, as I mentioned before. And they're making those investments with large aircraft, with dual-class products. So they're deploying CRJ-900s, E-175s, 76-seat aircraft. We got 12 first-class seats on those airplanes. We love the E-175s because you can actually put your carry-on on the inside. You don't have to gate check it, as well as the cargo holds a much larger, and as we know, that's very important for the military. So all of this really came out of that discussion that we had with them last year. Remember, we covered all of this, and now we're seeing the results of this. So I'll fast forward quickly through this. I know it's a lot of numbers, but really I wanted to put it into perspective that, yes, we were down in seats, but we're not the only airports that are down. This is all the similarly situated airports in Texas. 2022 versus 2023 number of seats that were down. On average, is 19%. Killeen experienced about a 21% down via those 2 years. Austin, if you look at the American service only from Austin, 23 versus 24, Austin is down 19%. American has pulled, I believe it's over 21 cities, nonstop markets out of Austin and deployed those aircraft across the rest of the U.S. Because of that pilot shortage, because of that competitive issue. So, and we've been the recipient of some of that service is coming to Killeen. And we're filling those seats. So even on fewer seats, that top bar is the load factor. So it's the percentage of seats filled on an aircraft. So if you look at 2024, we're actually filling more and more of the seats on the airplanes, which is very important. And then lastly, if you do the quarter 3 23 versus quarter 3 through quarter 4 24, we're going to be up 13%. So we've turned a corner. American has started investing in the market, and we're seeing some growth again in the market. Average fare. This is always a good one. So when we talk about fares, obviously in smaller regional airports, we hear a lot about fares, right? Fares are high. Why are the fares this way? So let me give you just a little bit of a background to put it into perspective. So pricing is extremely complex. There's a lot of things that go into pricing. They have machine learning models that price these aircraft based on demand, supply demand. So it's about the seats available. It's about the different types of fare buckets available, the seasonality, the competition in a market, the competition in a competitive market down the street. But ultimately, it's about fare elasticity, which means the airlines are going to charge what the community is willing to pay because it's a business. They're trying to profit. So they're going to try to maximize the revenue that's generated on each airplane, of course, within reason. And you may not realize this, but this is why I wanted to show this. So these are the top markets where we have the most traffic: Atlanta, Boston, DCA, Detroit. So we did a comparison of similarly situated carriers in both Austin and DFW. And really what I hope you take away from this is we're competitive in a lot of these markets as it relates to average fares. So the green bars are the ones where we're actually lower. We're priced actually lower than fares out of DFW with similarly situated carriers like American, Delta, and United. But put it into perspective, Austin has 14 million annual seats. GRK has 124,000. So on any given day when you're checking for a fare, yes, there's probably going to be some anomalies where maybe all the flights are full and you're looking at the last 3 seats available and those fares are going to be much higher. But on average, we're within $120 round trip on all of these key markets. If you look at over to the right where it says total, that's $65 one way to Austin. That's $62 one way to DFW. Multiply that by 2, that's about $120. And you ask yourself the question, is it worth flying from my home airport? Do I save $120 in drive time and traffic, parking, all that? And I think the answer, at least for me as a business traveler, is yes. I fly from my home airport and I'll pay a little bit extra in a fare because I know I'm actually getting a benefit and I'm benefiting my community when I do it as well. The other thing that we hear a lot is, are we going to be canceled or delayed? Well, the reality is this is reported. We know what our cancellation rates are. We know what our delay percentages are. So GRK actually ranks 16%, Waco's 18%, and Austin's 22%. So we are competitive as it relates to percentage of our flights that are delayed. Of course, we're at the mercy of DFW for all of our delays. So if DFW has weather, of course, we're going to have delays. The reason why air service, we're trying to diversify our hub product. We want to get Houston back. We want to get Denver. We want to potentially get Charlotte into the future. But even with DFW being our only hub, we're still good on the percent delayed flights. Last piece is I've showed this to you before, but this is the granularity of detail that we have as it relates to air passengers. So we know down to the zip code where the travelers are being generated. So you can see a lot of it's generated in this custom catchment area around the airport. We also know we have to reinforce the fact that we say our population is growing and it's valuable. You can see it in the air passenger data. So if you look within that radius that I just showed you, this custom catchment area with all these zip codes, it's grown from 2,123 passengers per day each way. You see that in 2019, quarter 3. Fast forward to 2023, quarter 3, it's up about 600 passengers per day. So that is a result of valuable population growth. We see more and more people flying to and from the region, in this case, from the region. They originate here. So definitely a great story to tell to the carriers, but we're not getting our fair share of that traffic today. We need more air service. We only get 6% of that today, 53% going to Austin. And also, this is important to understand, what airlines is this traffic flying? Southwest gets the majority at 34%. American gets 32. So collectively, 66% of the air travelers are either flying Southwest or American, which means there's net new opportunity for all these other carriers to get into the mix here in Killeen and take advantage of the competitive opportunity to grow their product in this market. And then we've got some big markets. Look at Las Vegas, 180 passengers per day, Denver at 162, and LA at 147. And we know we're not carrying that today. Las Vegas, we're getting 4 of the 180. Denver, we're getting 2. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to capture this traffic, both to the east and to the west. And then the last piece I'll leave you with is risk mitigation is important. It's vital in a market like Killeen. And in order to mitigate risk, we have to keep our costs down, especially if we're trying to pursue ultra low-cost carriers. The reason why they're ultra low-cost carriers is because their margins are extremely thin. So even airport fees can have a huge impact on their business models. So Mr. Wilson, his team has been amazing at keeping these costs in check. You can look at the comparison between our landing fee at 84 cents versus Austin at $3.19, and then our overall cost per head that an airline would pay per passenger is $5 versus $10.61 out of Austin. So this is in the ultra low cost carrier category. I work with a lot of airports that can't say this, and they're working to get their costs down to be relevant to low cost carriers, but we're already there here in Killeen. And then the last piece is, this was a collective result, a milestone effort by the community to secure these funds. So this is what we still have, the $1.2 million for revenue guarantee, coupled with the $280,000 for marketing support and waiving of fees and that sort of thing. So we have these airport incentives in play. And that's going to help us, I think, execute when the timing is right with some of these air carriers. So I'll leave you with the flight plan. So where do we stand? Number one, continuous pursuit of the return of United Airlines to this market. Well, we know, and the feedback that we received from them is they want to be in the market, but they need the resources to compete. They don't want to come back with 2 flights a day and relive the challenges that they faced in the past. So they have to have the pilots, they have to have the airplanes, and the good news is they are working on a very aggressive program to get more regional flying over the next couple years. So we are on their list, and that MRG could be used to get them back into the market. We're also, of course, always looking for those opportunities to get ULCCs in, ultra low-cost carriers, to markets like Vegas, MCO, Denver, LA. We talked about Breeze, we talked about Avella. And then, of course, our current partner being American Airlines, we want to continue to grow with them. We want to add more daily flights. We also want to get them to Charlotte at some point. We believe it will take a competitor to come into the market to motivate them to fly to Charlotte, but I believe we can get there at some point. So those are our top targets for today's world, where we stand. In order to get there, we got to keep doing what we're doing. We got to keep getting better data, delivering that to the airlines. We've got to be working with our local community, doing these task force meetings, and then ultimately we've got to deliver that message consistently to the airlines. And it has to be meaningful. It has to be relevant information. So, of course, targeting carriers like American, Avella, Allegiant, Breeze, Frontier. And then we just completed the ACI Jumpstart meetings. We have another touch point in October at takeoff, where we'll be going to meet with airlines again, completing 20-minute meetings, delivering the business case. But in between, we're going to be working on getting headquarters visits and web meetings with these strategic carriers. So I know it was a lot in a very short period of time, but I wanted to just give you guys that update. The one that we delivered to the task force was about 20 more slides than this, so I cut it down for you guys. But always, it's a pleasure, and I hope you guys appreciate that, what we're trying to accomplish. And I think if we continue to do it collectively, we'll eventually see some positive results that will benefit the community as a whole. So thank you for the opportunity. Any questions?
Thank you for the update, the package that we received, everything. You answered all the questions
Okay,
for
great.
me because it was in our package that we received, and we had the opportunity to review it. But thank you and your team, and Mr. Wilson, as always, thank you. We just have, as our city continue to grow, we have to push the media out to let them know that we're here.
Yeah.
Because without this rebranding today, back then, most people didn't even know we had an airport. Mm-hmm. So now this is really starting to get more people out and flying out of Killeen, out of their homes and flying here instead of driving to Austin. I thank you for that. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, and thank you for the presentation. I do appreciate it. If we can go to slide 22, I had a question about the rebranding. And it's good to see that it's been deployed in conjunction with the name change for the airport. Grateful to see this. I have a few questions. These two questions actually were not in the presentation that we received. First, I want to say I like the catchphrase, "You're a Central Texas hometown airport."
Yes,
It
sir.
promotes folks traveling local as well as kind of having us embrace the ownership of the airport, which I think is great. I had a question about the logo. You have the primary and the secondary. The primary has the bold text, and it has the runway inside included with the plane. For uniformity's sake, did we consider removing that runway
The runway from
portion of the logo?
removing it? Or-
Yes.
So the primary, we use the 3-letter airport code, which is, a lot of airports are transitioning to use that as more of the marketing, the logo that they use.
Sure.
So the one at the bottom would be in most settings, I think you would use that could be used as the primary logo. But the GRK is what we had that logo prior. So we kind of went with that as the primary. That's what you saw before. So we basically just adjusted that. And we try to bring some element of that dynamic runway with that red line that goes across the bottom. But we wanted to keep it simple. We wanted to keep it easy to recognize and taking some of those elements like the color, obviously being Fort Cavazos being a big player in this market. So is that what you were asking about, taking that runway element and putting it into the other one?
And I'll be granular just for a second. My graphic design mind is thinking about spacing, text size, proportionality, color combinations, all that stuff. The primary logo, to me, appears a little busy. When you look at the DFW Airport logo,
Yeah, it's just DFW,
Nashville,
right.
they're real simple to catch.
Yeah.
This one you're kind of having to focus in and read. And when you have that airstrip portion of it, it's just kind of a lot. But particularly I had a question about how do we come to the color combination and how, that's the main question I got right now.
Yeah, so part of it came from the existing logo. So some of it we didn't change if it wasn't broken, we didn't need to fix it. So we talked about changing the name of the airport altogether, but ultimately what we ended up deciding is let's just simplify it. Let's just pull out the Fort Hood reference and let's just call it Killeen Regional Airport. So what we did do though is we took the dated colors of the original logo and we kind of updated them with more vibrant colors that tied back in, to the region, because obviously Fort Cavazos being at the heart of the city and everything that we do here tied back into America as well. So that's part of the reason why we went with that color scheme.
Okay. And I guess I favor the secondary more than the primary. This is a finished process. I know it's the end result. We get a chance to kind of have input on that draft. But that's just my recommendation because that primary seems a little busy as opposed to.
And that's
other
what,
airports.
normally we would just have one logo, but because of that, the use of that, it works in some areas. Like on the website, for example, that big GRK, we would use that and it would do just fine. But, there's other places where we may want to use a simpler version of the logo.
Sure.
And that's why that secondary was created.
Sure. And it has my support. I did just want to communicate that and kind of get clarity on why we adhere to what we have here. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and we should be always looking and trying to update this, over the next couple of years. We would go back and revisit this and try to refresh the brand if it needs it.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Councilmember
Yeah.
Adams?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just 2 quick questions. First is, great presentation.
Thank you.
You guys, you and Mr. Wilson's team have done great. What can we do as a council to help promote any of those carriers that come in, like decisions that we make or visits? I know you have a meeting. We have a meeting coming up with United.
Yeah.
What can we do to help out?
I think overall, just, a good example of coming together was the headquarters visit that we completed last year with American. And yes, it's symbolic to bring a big delegation there, but it's also strategic in the fact that if you put yourself in the airline's position, right, that's what we're ultimately trying to do. And it's a multi-million-dollar risk that they're deploying in this market. So they want to make sure that the users, that the leadership, that the stakeholders in the region understand, are a part of the decision-making process and are supportive. And that's the key, I think. It's also about working, with local stakeholders, using your influence to tell people to, use your local airport when you can, because there is a direct and indirect benefit when you do that. Even though you may have to pay a little more in airfare from time to time, the business case right now is very positive. I showed you how American's adding more service. It's very difficult to go to another airline to say fly here if the existing carrier is not doing well and it's not growing. So all this is important, so we need your influence. We need, that's why we want to educate and engage with you guys, so what's going to drive results. But also, continue to talk to your constituents and stakeholders and get them to hopefully use the airport as much as possible. And feedback. We want to hear if there's challenges. That's what we're here for, to work through those challenges, to be the liaison with the airline, to say, hey, we need to look at this route, or we need to, look at the timing of this flight. All that comes from feedback from the community.
And then the last question is, you did state what our citizens, you did it in the presentation and here, but what can citizens take away other than Fly Killeen? 'Cause that's something I constantly tell people. Even the drive down to Austin is equal to that additional $5,200 that you're gonna pay. So from this, and I know we do some local marketing, and we may need to push it up a little bit so people, crazy as it sounds, that there may be some that still think we only have Skylark. That's in our immediate location. But, well, you don't have to answer it because you actually kind of answered it, but I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, guys.
Once again, Mr. Wilson, sir, thank you both. Everything is in place. Only thing we can do is move Killeen forward. Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
You're welcome, sir. Madam Secretary.
PR 24016, Rodeo Killeen Committee request for funds presentation and after action report.
Mr. Gordon. Good afternoon. Mrs. Drake, good afternoon. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this will be a presentation for the Rodeo Killeen, and I would like to introduce retired U.S. Army Colonel Brett Gordon, who is co-chair for the Rodeo Killeen Committee.
All right, well, good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. Tonight, I would like to highlight the 77th Annual Rodeo Killeen that we just completed. And I want to thank you for the resources that you provided this year, because this actually turned out to be one of the best rodeos in recent history. And this isn't just coming from me. It's coming from all the comments I've heard from competitors and spectators alike. So just a little bit of statistics. So overall, attendance was down about 200 people due to the storms on Thursday night. Thursday night typically draws about 4,500 to 5,000 people, mainly our military members and their families. We had about 250 that night. They'd shut Fort Cavazos down. I was getting blasted on email, on Facebook, are they canceling the rodeo? Well, we never cancel rodeos. So a lot of people decided to stay home. Those that came to that Thursday night performance absolutely loved it. With the water standing in the arena, everyone getting covered with mud. It was quite the sight to behold, and there were no injuries. So even though we had a decrease Friday night and Saturday nights, spectator crowds were much larger than normal. So it was a good rodeo. Our sponsorships, we continued to work on sponsors. I think we increased by about 25 sponsors this year, as well as our contestants. 481 people entered the rodeo, 380 something last year. And last year's rodeo, we had a huge spike in competitors, and then it increased that this year, and that was mainly due to the increase in prize money. About 260 of those competitors were female athletes. So they have taken notice of Killeen. Like last year, we received extensive media coverage at no cost to the committee or the city. We've developed a great relationship with the media reps you see there. We continue that relationship with them. If you were there for the Celebrity Calf Scramble, those celebrities were all part of these news agencies, and they absolutely love it and have a great time doing it. But being able to have that coverage at no cost is extremely a great value to us. So beer sales, while Friday and Saturday beer sales exceeded last year's, the overall beer sales was short due to the Military Appreciation Night. Typically, our military members and their families blow out the rest of the city on the amount of the beer they drink. That wasn't the case this year. Just to rehash our events, we did have, these are the same events we've had last year. We did have another event scheduled, steer roping, but out of concern for the safety of the livestock, we decided to cancel that due to the condition of the arena. We will plan to have that event reinstated next year. While we continue our traditions, unfortunately, the weather did severely impact Military Appreciation Night. We didn't have the First Cav horse detachment there. You know, they're always a crowd favorite to watch that. In addition, AUSA and Big Hoss Barbecue for years now has been donating about 2,000 meals, barbecue meals, to active members and their family members. We had about 250 show up, so we had lots of leftovers. One thing I would like to highlight is, though we offer free admission for our active military and their family members, we haven't done that for our veterans. As you can see in this demographic, just about everybody here is a veteran, and we wouldn't probably have any ticket sales, so we've never offered that. However, this year, Dominion Energy came online and said, hey, we want to pay for every veterans to go, and they did. And so we just kept track of how many veterans and said, this is how many went. We still had a lot of veterans, though, bring in canned goods because they want to donate to the cause. So another tradition, as I just mentioned, most rodeos do not do this, but we did fill up 3 trucks loads of canned goods and donate it to the Food Care Center. This is our second year of awarding a scholarship since we reinstated the program last year. This year's recipient is Dion Thomas. He's the young one standing in the middle. Dion is a very deserving young man. He's been a part of the committee for the past 4 years, very active in high school and in leadership roles in high school. And we look forward to continue and grow this program in the coming years. And as you know, we are proud to offer free admission to our city employees as well as our educators each year to thank them for their service. One thing new we did this year, we held our first ever Special Hearts Rodeo. This was conducted on Saturday morning. Had no idea what the turnout was going to be. It was free. We just put it out there, you know, looking for those special needs people that would want to participate in rodeo-like events. So we had them out there, about 200. This event was sponsored and organized by the Maxdale Cowboy Church, the 3C Cowboy Fellowship out of Salado, Soldiers of the Cross Church in Killeen, Hoofbeats for Heroes, and Cavenders and Chick-fil-A of Killeen. So we plan to continue doing this just to get more people out there and have some unique experiences. So as I mentioned before, we have received significant positive feedback from the competitors and spectators alike. As I mentioned earlier, due to the added money, we drew top athletes that had never been to Killeen, and pretty much heard the same comment from them is, we didn't think Killeen would be as professional as it is, talking about the rodeo. We really try to take care of the athletes as they come on board. And we received more competitors in the past. Example, in past years, we may have 10 to 11 bull riders. We had to shut it off at 16 each night, and we had top competitors versus guys that don't stay on too long. Another common comment was the video board. Everyone loved that, being able to see that replay, see things they missed, and get a closer view of it. So the video board was a big hit and kind of brought us up to a different level of rodeo. And lastly, as our rodeo grows, so does the need to expand our facilities. And I'm really talking more about the areas for the animals. We had to bring in more animals. What we'd like to do is build some additional stock pens, in the current footprint. We really only need material as our board members, committee members, several of them are certified welders. And we also have other construction specialists on the committee that are, as always, willing to donate their time to make Rodeo Killeen better. So one of the things that came with the video board and the camera crews was being a part of the Cowboy Channel. And this highlighted, so we had live streaming as well as video replays, and you can still watch it today on the Cowboy Channel. This capability put Killeen and Rodeo Killeen in the spotlight across the U.S. because this rodeo, or Cowboy Channel, is watched nationwide by a lot of viewers. Total live views for that evening was 2,400. And as of this morning, restreaming, or however you want to say it, 6,537 people have looked at it after the live event. So I'd like to thank the city for making this possible, because if you haven't watched it, it is pretty neat. What you see here in the picture is a commentator talking about Killeen Rodeo, talking about each ride. So it's kind of ESPN-like for rodeo. So it's been a great event to have that, or great capability for us to have that. Now, prior to next year's rodeo, we're planning to host at least 3 different barrel races at the rodeo grounds. We anticipate at least 200 competitors for each barrel race. This will greatly increase the revenue coming into the Killeen, as well as the use of the facility. So those are planned out. We're working on those. And then I just ask you to mark your calendars next May for the 78th Annual Rodeo. I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting Rodeo Killeen.
Thank you so much, Brett, for the update. Thank you. There are no questions for you. Thank you. Let the record show that Councilwoman Cobb is on Zoom and Councilmember Alvarez is absent. Citizen comments. Mr. Daniel Lemon. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Mayor, City Council, how you doing? So, here to talk about ordinance 17 or 24007, considering the ordinance adopting exemption from taxes for qualifying child care centers for, I guess, the next upcoming year. So, I just got a couple of things I want to cover. I'm try to keep it brief and not be all over the place. You know, my mind want to take me everywhere. So this ordinance, in my opinion, is definitely going to help us be able to take care of the kids in our communities. When I look at some of the other cities, what they're trying to do to help build out daycares so that parents will have a safe place for kids to go to. This right here, this exemption, is one of the things that they're actually using. And some of the other cities are actually raising taxes, raising property taxes, and setting millions of dollars aside to come up with a subsidy program in addition to the Texas workforce. So that really tells you how the daycare business is really struggling. But a lot of people are not paying attention, maybe because they're busy, they got their own agendas, they're not in this business. But I tell you, I'm in this business, I've been doing it for 15 years. And I just want to highlight some things that about what we do and how I really think you guys considering this ordinance and the benefits is going to help the kids. First of all, we're going to be mandated by Texas workforce to watch 20% of the kids in the Killeen, at-risk kids that never would have had the chance to go to a quality daycare because the price is out of reach. But because we take this exemption, they say, hey, you got to watch 20% of these at-risk kids so they can go to a quality daycare. That's a huge benefit. Okay, so that way, you know that daycare is going to be quality because inspectors are always coming to check us out, the state. Texas Rising Star is monitoring us probably every quarter to make sure that we're keeping the upkeep of our business safe, making sure that we spend the money on the environment, slides, toys, books, whatever material that we need, and not even having the money. And the reason why I say that we don't have the money is because in Austin, I have 3 after-school programs. In Austin, those guys are charging $900 for an after-school program. What they do, I don't know. In Dallas, they're doing the same thing. Here in Killeen, we probably get like $400. Child care is child care no matter where it's at. And people can argue, hey, the rent is high, but most likely the food is the same, utilities is the same, all of those. And when you take out those expenses, they make more money than us, which means that when something like this come across the table, we got to fight for it. We need you guys' help. We need you guys' help. Another thing is that in November, we voted, we put this on the ballot, SB 1145 is what it was called. And the state of Texas wanted to see actually what the people think about it. Here in Killeen, the people voiced their opinions and they stated that, hey, we support this. We support this bill, and based on that, I hope you guys, women, listen to what the people in your districts say.
Thank you, sir.
Is that my 3
Mike?
minutes?
Yes, sir, your time is up. Yes, right there.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Can I get another minute? I'll go through it real quick. Yes. That was fast, 3 minutes.
Sir,
Got it.
Madam Secretary, 1 minute.
Got it, 1 minute. Also, everybody's not gonna get the exemption because guess what? We gotta sustain our accreditation, which is real hard. We gotta also be able to pay our staff more, okay? Right now, nobody can live off $14 an hour. They can say what they want to say, that's street talk, they can't do it. So we trying to prevent from raising the rates of our parents, and getting up to the $900. So we need this exemption to help us keep the rates down so we can put people back to work here in Killeen. We constantly gotta get trained. So in training our people, everybody want money, so we gotta pay for that. And we're not asking for a handout. I pay taxes, I'm just asking you to let me keep my taxes. Okay, we're a pillar of this community, just like KISD. They don't pay taxes, and we need to be able to keep our taxes also so we can help our community. And this is a service that we're trying to provide in our community. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Anka? Good evening, you have 4 minutes.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'm going to speak on the Parkland dedication appeal for Heritage Oaks Phase 7. As you know, or some of you know, I've been involved with developing Heritage Oaks for years as an engineer. So obviously, I'm going to speak in favor of approving this appeal. But I want to give you reasons for it, very good reasons. First of all, in May of this year, the City of Killeen organized the Fallen Heroes 5K run. That took place at Heritage Oaks Hike and Bike Trail. It's important because I want to show you how valuable this piece of land that was donated by Mr. Purser as a part of a PUD, Heritage Oaks PUD agreement. It has been in use by the community for years, and it is very valuable and very desirable area that was donated by the owner, Mr. Purser, without having to, really. 400 participants brought in a total of at least $10,000 just in one day. That's just an example of how valuable this land is. Mr. Purser could have developed it differently. He could have asked us to arrange the lots so that they back to the creek, which would make them very valuable and could be sold at a premium. He could have made millions of dollars, literally. But he chose to donate this property to the city. He chose to do that. There's also a PUD agreement that you can pull up and read, and it mentions that this land is specifically donated for use as parkland. He did that before there was any parkland ordinance. And the amount of parkland he donated actually far exceeds what he would have been required to donate under the current parkland dedication. This PUD, like I said, the PUD agreement mentions parkland dedication, and the purpose is to be used for the community, for creating parks. And it has been used for years, and obviously I'm in favor of it. In my talks with a former council member, Melissa Brown, she's the one who brought up the PUD agreement, and I think the city should honor that agreement. Thank you.
During the presentation, Mr. Adams asked if there's anything that you and council could do. Yeah, give people a reason to come to Killeen and use the airport. Large industry, big business. I mean, Waco's got water parks. What do we have? Nothing. Austin's got music festivals, world renowned. We don't have anything. So that answers that question. Item 13, consider a memorandum for the procurement of 4 refuse trucks. There's nothing to consider. Just buy them. We could have had these and should have had these years, plural, ago, at a much cheaper cost, I'm sure. But that's a hit on city management, which also relates to agenda items. Item 15, this FCOCTA plan, when it comes to entrance and all that on Watercrest. Right, I'm just down the street from where that's supposed to go. All right, we haven't even improved Watercrest. We're going to take that down to 3 lanes as the latest plan. Add a traffic light. We've already spent money on a traffic study. And now, obviously, Anybody who's put this plan together doesn't live there and doesn't know that Watercrest is a major artery, thoroughfare, whatever term you want to use, to get from one side of Willow Springs to the other. It feeds to Robinette, it feeds to Willow Springs. Heavily traveled, heavily trafficked, and now you're gonna put something right there in between two traffic lights. What's the plan? Now we're gonna have to revamp that and spend more money. Where is this foresight that a certain council member keeps claiming that you folks have? I don't see it. Anybody who lives in the neighborhood, drives past that all the time, can already see it in their head, the traffic jams and all the other things that are gonna happen. Discuss establishment of a charter review committee for Killeen. I would recommend also have a public forum, since I'm sure that the charter review committee will have very select membership and only accept certain and very select input. I'm sure there's quite a bit about the city that needs to get changed as far as the charter, that you need to hear from the people and not just from the usual suspects. Review governing standards. Now, this one's a good one. Governing standards, that which you keep using to overturn, ignore, usurp, whatever local policies, to ignore and nullify the U.S. Constitution. You guys need to get your heads in the game and get them out of someplace that I'm not even going to go there. This governing standards that you're using to silence us, restrict our speech and everything else, it's going to cost you. I say that right here now. Mark down the date and the time. It's going to cost you. That's all. You've already restricted to where we can't talk about anything but what you want to talk about. Right? First Amendment quite clearly states redress of grievances, petition government. You've taken both of those away. You will be sued. City manager review. Looking historically at William Bligh of Her Majesty's Armed Vessel Bounty fame, he was a real person. Many people in this room probably don't know that. The most famous mutiny that he was subject to, there was two other major ones after that, and he seemed to have the same problem. Oh, wasn't my fault, I wasn't there. Where's this effective city management? We don't have it. You keep giving him raises. A whole south side, we got water pressure issues. We have road issues. We have lost 2 Parks and Recreation manager, a chief of police who isn't really still retired because he's policing elsewhere. So he didn't leave the law enforcement game. We lost a community development director, et cetera, et cetera. At what point will you folks realize from a management standpoint, maybe it's him. He's not the right fit. You don't lose that many senior people and key officials and one person remains and say, oh, he's outstanding, he's wonderful. Okay, I've managed people under fire. I can tell you, he's not.
Good evening, Council. I rise under Section 551.042 to propose an addition to next week's agenda with adding a town hall meeting on a monthly basis. Under DS 24-040, I think that having this item on November 5th is election interference, and it should probably be moved from the national election day. RS 24-111. No, we're on 103. Sorry, court cameras at $69,551. RS 24-104, the MetLife Dental, for $1.43 million for the next 2 years. This also supports the UN agenda and UNRWA with the Hamas terrorists in Israel. It's underneath the Agenda 21 and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So you'll be buying into that if you buy into MetLife, just so that's understood. That's part of their program, as stated on their website by MetLife themselves. 24 is 105, $76,000 for election equipment. 24-107, this is spending $90,000, but I don't think that that's coming out of our budget. I think that's an Air Force budget, the airport budget, a different fund. The terminal building on Skylark, so 24-108 at $358,000. We already have a certificate of bond of $2.7 million already for this project. Yeah, that's 24-109. We also have $2.955 million for airport maintenance. 24-110 this is a developer at a $30,750 loss to taxes because they're asking for a waiver due to their timelines or whatever. RS 24-111, we're asking $99,650 for a design of a water reclaim system for the golf course. RS 24-111, 1.784 or 1,784,484 for 4 trash trucks. Did we get any warranties for them? RS 24-113, $7 million tax loan for Goodwill. I'm just wondering who the actual purchaser is, or the buyer, or the loanee, who's getting the loan, the person. RS 24-111, on the West Side Regional Park, Phase 1, is each phase $4.15 million requirement to each, or, how many phases? I didn't see the project on it, couldn't find it, so I apologize. So I'm just wondering. With public hearing 24-03, I say yes. I would agree with that. Underneath public hearing 24-024, the combined cost with everything implied in there is $3,529,258.88, right? With a total cost to the city of $23,824 or $824,435, and that's kind of like rounded off with the cents off to the side, right?
Thank you,
So-
Mr. Price. Your time is up.
Okay.
Ronnie Russell.
I got to the end.
Good evening, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Yay, I made it this time.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, city's managers, assistant city managers, secretary. I'm here about the ordinance 24-007 in support of the adoption of it. So I created top 10 reasons to embrace it. So number one is it's going to assist with the reduction of reduce the cost of child care. Tax credit will help to reduce the cost of child care for families, making it more affordable for them to work and attend school. Child support care providers. The tax credit will provide much needed financial support for child care providers, helping them to stay in business and offer high quality care. Create jobs. Tax credit will create new jobs in the child care sector, boosting the economy. Improve the quality of child care. Tax credit will encourage child care providers to invest in their facilities, staff, improving the quality of care that is available for children. Promote early childhood education. Tax credit will help to promote early childhood education, which is essential for children's development, because when they have more money, they actually have more money to advertise. Reduce child care poverty. Tax credit will help to reduce child care poverty to make child care more affordable for low-income families. Strengthen families. Tax credit will help strengthen families by making it easier for parents to work and care for their children. Boost the economy. Tax credit will boost the economy by creating new jobs and increasing consumer spending. Invest in the future. Tax credit is an investment in the future of our city as well as our county. So I would definitely say adopt that OR 24-007. And as a Chamber of Commerce, I have 6 members that are that are child care members. It is very important when you look at how beneficial it would be, because with having over 300 members, some of those have children that's going to be in these facilities. If these facilities go away, then they're going to have more issues on top of what they already currently have. Again, if there's more money in the child care facility, then they have more money to actually market. So the recidivism and the retention of keeping businesses open, again, like I said the last time, we have to look at the end in mind. How many more businesses are going to stay open? How many more opportunities for youth programs are we going to have when you look at the end in mind with adopting this program? So, thank you.
I'm going to start at the end and work my way backwards. On city manager review, I think that the council needs to make it clear right now today, no raise or benefit increase over what his current employees are receiving. Also, this should technically be listed as a quarterly review. His official review is in December. As far as governing standards, return free speech, non-agenda items for every person who wants to speak. Clearly, people are going to speak how they want to anyway. If you want decorum, then go ahead and give them a legal way to do it, or at least a way where they're not going to be reprimanded for saying what they want to say, for saying what they need to say, and for what you need to hear. Because right now, what's happening is that preferred and select citizens are getting on the agenda. There needs to be more than 4 minutes on agenda items, especially when you have in excess of 20 items and people feel that they're important to them. Council members should not get any extra time if they deny it to citizens. Let's go to number 15. We're going to pay $4,120,000, which is our grant share, in toward a 3-year agreement that doesn't include the M&O cost. So this is $4 million in debt that we, the citizens, have no say in because it's coming out of a CO bond. We don't know what the other expenses are, and I have never seen this park come up for an express approval vote by the council. It may be part of the plan, but that was supposed to be the long-term plan. No one ever said, let's move on it right now. So even if this is phase 1 of design and construction, and I should hope that with it being a little over $12 million, it's not just design of phase 1, but there's some construction happening, and then we really do need to worry about watercrest. Going on to number 12, the city spent around $1 million in 2015 to redo the entire irrigation system at the golf course in order to use gray water. This is another $639,650 project, not $99,650. So let's be honest about spending while we're here. Where's the $540,000 supposed to come from? This enterprise fund is brand newly created for this fiscal year, so it doesn't have its own CIP fund of $500,000. We have never brought in $500,000 worth of profit in that golf course, much less excess revenue. Number 11, just do the right thing. It's that easier. This developer went above and beyond in the land dedication, and be glad he's not asking you to apply it to the land for future development, which he could do under parkland dedication rules. If we can't honor a PUD, good luck getting commercial development. Number 10, can we get an update from Fort Cavazos and finance with a true and accurate update on the animal control IGSA before entering into another one? I don't see the benefit to Killeen that was promised. Number 8, we're going to put $115,000 out of TERS to get $90,000 to add to the $110,309 that was approved on March 18th for the Weather Observation Center. All of this cost a total of $235,309, is due to Anthem Park and an agreement that was made in an incentive package for them. But Killeen is getting a whole lot of that cost, so KEDC needs to be overhauled. We're giving money to an organization that's putting $500,000 automatically out of what we give them into what they call economic development services. That's paying for salaries for people who work for the Chamber of Commerce. That's not going directly into incentives. We're paying money out of our water bill so that they can do stuff, but they're paying their employees money, well, the Chamber of Commerce employees money, instead of giving us the incentives that we need for businesses. Overhaul it, bring new people on,
Your
and make sure
time
that
is
our
up.
money is being spent
Thank you.
properly.
Michelle Lee. I'm sorry, Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to bring clarity to the public in regards to Watercrest Road, which is a part of my district. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have City Manager chime in. I believe that road is out for bid, construction bid as we speak.
Yes, sir. It'll be on an agenda, I believe, in August for award.
Understood. So the award's coming soon to begin construction on Watercrest. I want to make sure everyone is aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, and also on that parkland dedication, Mr. Cagle, correct me if I'm wrong, you had already met with Mr. Purser, staff did, and that was an agreement, and it had to go up on the agenda so the council can vote. So it's not like that had already been decision made by staff and Mr. Purser that this was going to happen. And I thank staff for working together with him to make this decision. Michelle Lee, and ma'am, I apologize for that. Please.
Madam Mayor, City Council, my name is Michelle Lee with Killeen Engineering and Surveying. We're located at 2901 East Dan Schluter Loop, and I'm here to speak tonight on item 11. So with the parkland dedication ordinance, if we do not agree with it, we are required to come in front of the City Council and ask for an appeal to waive the requirements for the parkland dedication, and that's why we are here tonight. Just a little history, Heritage Oaks Phase 7 is just a very small subdivision. It's about 41 lots. When the developer originally purchased the acreage for what he has developed into Heritage Oaks subdivision, it was about 288 acres. And as Ms. Honka had already talked about, he has already donated to the city over 90 acres of that for Heritage Oaks Hike and Bike Trail. So he's already donated about a third of that property to the city. Also, I would like to point out with the parkland dedication ordinance, it's about $1,200 per lot. So it's about $450 to the parkland development and $750 to the parkland dedication or fees in lieu of. The developer has absolutely no problem with paying that $450 per lot for the parkland development, but he is asking for a waiver of the $750 per lot parkland dedication or fees in lieu of. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
There are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also would like to make one last comment on OR-24007. This ordinance is on the agenda because of Mr. Lemon. Mr. Lemon came to me, he had a concern, and he expressed the child care tax exemption. And he explained to me how it will affect not all the child care facilities in Killeen, but some of the facilities, and keeping staff and the programs and making sure that the kids get top-rate education. It's because of Mr. Lemon and his wife, and I thank council for agreeing to this tax exemption for child care, some child care. So Mr. Lemon, thank you, and your wife. Thank you, and council. Madam Secretary, we will now move on to resolutions.
Madam Mayor. we have
Minutes.
The minutes, yes, ma'am. LMN 24.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle.
LMN 24015, consider minutes of regular city council meeting of May 28th, 2024.
Thank you, Madam Secretary and Mr. Cagle, for catching that. Now, Madam Secretary, resolution. Council, you have 2 times each to speak for 5 minutes.
RS 24-103, consider a memorandum resolution approving an agreement for the replacement of the municipal court cameras with GTS Technology Solutions in an amount of $69,551.
Thank you,
Good
Madam Secretary. Good evening, Mr. Resta.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is the replacement of the municipal court cameras. This will include the interior and the exterior cameras that are in badly need of the court, or a total of 37 cameras. So existing cameras in the court facility, again, frequent malfunctions. Also, the sunlight has made some not viewable. So the instance of downtime, equipment failures, significant risks of safety and security. And let me stop right here. I failed to acknowledge that Judge Krishner is here. He's behind me. This is his project, and this is budgeted out of his budget. Excuse me, forgive me for that. Replacing the outdated cameras and with modern, dependable models is imperative. These models that they're going to have will be having night vision with them as well. They're a higher resolution rate as well. So upgrading the security camera is essential to enhance the overall safety and the security of the court facility. Also, the advanced camera technology offers features such as higher resolution, wider coverage angles, and improved night vision. One of our tasks is to try to get right down the alleyway that goes between us and the chamber, so we can cover some of these angles as well as most of the street, including inside for the safety and security of the staff that are working in the municipal court. And again, it's going to, the aging server, recording server where we record, or the server where the data is saved, we're also going to be replacing and upgrading that as part of this project. So GTS Technology Solution was selected to upgrade using a TIPS contract and a DIR contract for amount of $69,551,000. Our recommendation, the City Council to approve with GTS Solutions in the amount of $69,551 using the TIPS and DIR contracts, and that the city manager or designee be expressly authorized to execute any and all change orders within the amount set by state and local law. And I will entertain any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you. Judge Krishner, do you have anything to say or not? Briefly.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, City Manager. The cameras we have for the court system, they're nice to have, but they're really outdated. Some of them don't work, they malfunction a lot. And we have security concerns outside the court and also inside the court. So we would like you guys to approve this for the safety of not only the staff, but also the public who comes to court, and to have those cameras to increase the safety for all who come to court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because safety is the city's top priority, especially this council.
Thank you, ma'am. Exactly.
All right. So, any, Councilmember Adams?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a question. Will we be responsible, the city maintainer will be under warranty?
It's under warranty for about a year, then it goes under city maintenance.
Okay, and then will this be connected to the fuses in the real time?
Yeah, actually, that's what the chief and I were talking about. It is connected to the fuses now, but because of the cameras, they get really blurry pictures, but it is connected to the fuses. Most of our city facilities are going to be connected to fuses and real-time crime center as we move forward.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, both.
All right, thank you.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24-104, consider a memorandum resolution recommending to the Employee Benefits Trust the selection of MetLife for employee dental insurance and approving contracts for vision insurance, life and disability insurance, and worksite benefits.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good evening, Mrs. Bark and Mrs. McDaniel. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Kate McDaniel will actually do the presentation. I just want to introduce it. Good evening, everyone. And it's basically the item about our dental. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we presented healthcare, and this is dental and all of our other ancillary products. And then again, Kate McDaniel, she's the Assistant Director of HR. She'll be presenting the item for you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. As Ms. Bark said, I'm here to present the dental renewal to you and also discuss our vision, life, and worksite benefits. Just a little bit of background. Historically, the city has contributed a portion of the dental premiums for employees that choose to elect these benefits. We will continue in this practice as well as continue to offer one plan at no cost to the employee population that chooses this benefit. Our current provider for dental is MetLife, and we have 1,242 employees that actively participate in our dental plans. This year, in partnership with the city's employee benefits consultant, Lockton Dunning, an RFP was conducted for both dental and vision benefits, resulting in 4 respondents for dental, which were MetLife, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, Renaissance, and United Healthcare, and 4 respondents as well for vision, those being Avisus, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, Renaissance VSP, and MetLife VSP. Additionally, Lockton Dunning also completed a marketing initiative for our life, disability, and worksite benefits to determine our competitive market position. Our dental insurance is in a fully funded platform, and FY24 cost were $635,543, and this is also the final year of a 3-year agreement with MetLife, which we had a 3-year rate lock with them. The proposal for dental insurance comes at a cost of $794,457 with a 2-year rate lock contract for an increase of $158,915 for fiscal year 25. The city does not contribute to vision, voluntary life, disability, or worksite benefits. However, we did want to note that several of the worksite benefits are actually decreasing in cost for employees that choose to participate in those plans. Regarding plan amendments, there are no plan design changes to MetLife. We will continue with our current plan options, of which we provide 2. The city, again, will also continue to cover the employee-only premium on the low plan option, as well as continue to contribute a portion of the premiums for the other plan options as well. For vision, there are no plan design changes, as well as no cost increase. The vision plans will continue to be offered 2 plan options with no cost increase to employees. And again, the city does not contribute to vision premiums. However, again, because we know that choosing healthcare insurances can be expensive and confusing, we have renewed our contract with Alex, which is a benefit platform manager, to help employees choose the best and most cost-effective plan options for them. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago with the medical plans as well. So all of our insurance offerings, they can consult with the Alex platform and Jelly Vision to help make the best decision for them. Just to give you a visual of what the rate increases do look like for our dental plans, as I did notate the increase in cost, the city and the employee will split the cost of that increase. So the city will increase its portion that's contributing, and then the employee cost will increase on certain plan options as well. If you look at the 3rd column here, it notates what the cost per month increase will be per plan option for the employees, and then the farthest column to the right shows what the employer increase will be per plan option for employees. And lastly, staff does recommend to approve the renewal of the MetLife contract for its dental plans for an anticipated increase of $157,915 for FY, as well as to renew the contract with MetLife for its basic life and accidental death plans at no increase, plan options effective October 1 of 2024. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. There are no. Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. in your RFP analysis, how close or how different or how far apart was it between the winning bid and the, or do you know that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know that,
Okay.
but for dental,
Yeah.
is that what you're speaking to? I believe we had one respondent that was very close in cost comparison. However, the disruption for providers, it didn't make sense for us to make that
Okay,
choice.
that answered my next question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-105, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the procurement of additional election equipment from Election Systems and Software through Texas Buy Board Cooperative Contract 71023 in the amount of $76,000. And this item is mine. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
The City of Killeen holds a general election in May of each year for the purpose of electing a mayor and 3 council members in even-numbered years, and for electing 4 district council members in odd-numbered years. In 2011, the legislature passed Senate Bill 100, which provided that the county is only required to provide election support to cities, including equipment, in odd-numbered years. Because of this change, the city had to make alternative arrangements for election equipment when elections occurred in even-numbered years. In 2019, the city made an initial purchase of election equipment from Election Systems and Software, ES&S. Due to the city digitizing the election process over the past several years, additional election equipment is now needed, as the city has been renting extra machines from Bell County for each election. With the procurement of additional election equipment, the city will have enough equipment to be self-sufficient moving forward. In the fiscal year 2024 mid-year budget amendment, City Council approved an allocation of $76,000 to purchase the additional equipment. There will be an annual equipment maintenance cost and support fees of $6,980 per year. ES&S is a member of the Texas Buy Board Purchasing Cooperative Contract 71023. Purchases made through a cooperative contract are exempt from the competitive bidding process. The additional equipment, software, and services to be purchased, we will receive 8 additional express vote machines with carrying cases, 22 new express poll books or e-poll book machines with printers and carrying cases, machine memory devices and thumb drives, and express poll book licensing and training. Staff recommends City Council approve the purchase of additional election equipment from Election Systems and Software in the amount of $76,000, and that the city manager or his designee to execute any and all change orders in accordance with state law. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. There are no questions. Next.
RS 24-106, consider a memorandum resolution appointing council members to various boards, commissions, and committees. And this is also my item.
Yes, ma'am.
Pursuant to the governing standards and expectations, appointments and vacancies as soon as practicable after the annual city council election, appointments to committees and subcommittees will be made by city council. There are 2 types of appointments. Regular members, the council member serves as a council representative and votes on items that are considered by the board, commissioner, committee. And subcommittee members, the council member serves as a member to discuss applications for citizen boards, commissions, and committees, and recommend the most qualified applicants to the full city council, and that is done in September. The mayor has the first choice of 3 committees, followed by council members in tenure order selecting 1 committee each, followed by additional rounds of council members selecting committees until all committee appointments are filled. Tenure shall mean time in current office without a break from the time of election or appointment to present. In the event that tenure of council members is the same, the order of those members' selections will be based on the number of votes received when elected in highest to lowest order. And before you is the list of the order in which appointments should be made. So first, we have the mayor to select the first three.
Yes, ma'am.
Committees?
I am keeping my same committees. Make it simple. Do you know what those are?
I have the Audit Committee, the Clean Economic Development Corporation, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 2 Board, Central Texas Council of Governments.
Yes, ma'am.
There are more, because there are subcommittees. The Board of Adjustment Aviation.
Oh, yeah. That's a board, those boards are boards that individuals just didn't want, so we just went around. so-
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's also the Board of Adjustment Zoning.
Point of information, Madam Mayor. Did we not do a motion of direction to see about combining the boards of adjustment? And I believe you do have 4 because SITCOG is a required one for the mayor. So you had,
So my boards are, and then Mr. Kager will look into that, but if we just going on the regular boards that we have, other than the ones that Councilmember Adams mentioned, Mr. Kager's looking on that now, but I would be on KEDC, COG, and also TERS. And the other boards, if it was, I don't even remember, it's been so long ago. We will figure that out and we'll combine them together, because I do understand what he's saying. I remember vaguely that because they didn't meet as often, that we were gonna combine meetings together, but I cannot go on record and say those are the committees. I cannot say that. So, those are my 3. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, apologies, didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you wanting to stay on the Audit Committee as well?
Well, I have to.
Okay, that's
Mayor.
right.
You can talk, please.
Make a suggestion, since this didn't change the order, unless people want to switch, it would end up staying the same for everybody, wouldn't it? Just rather than go through every one of those, unless somebody wants to switch.
Yeah, we do, yeah, 'cause we make things complicated. All right, yes, sir. Just a show of hand, if everyone would like to stay on the same committee. If not, we have 4. Councilwoman Cobb, you are second. Is there a committee that you want to change? Because you're the only one that raised your hand. Yes,
I
ma'am.
did want to change because I missed some committees that I just missed them and I want to go back to them.
Okay, well.
So I did want
wait,
change.
Well, yes, ma'am. She hadn't said yet. So you only get to pick one and then we
Do I
go.
need to?
You pick one and they go into a round robin. It depending on what committee you pick. So since you come after me, then whoever on that committee will have to choose another committee.
Point of order.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, stand by.
I'm trying
Yes.
to understand what process is established now, because my understanding is that we're going with the majority on staying with the existing committees. Am I correct?
There was no motion or direction. I just said raise your hand, and I thought she would agree, but she
Okay,
did
well,
not.
Okay, well, the responsible thing in
So
the future
can we
is for us
do
to go ahead
that,
and
a
do a
city
second this time.
attorney? Can we, if she wants to change her committee, can she change her committee? Or can we do a motion of direction and change it?
I missed nursing with 2 of them.
Stand by, please, Councilwoman.
Your governing standards, your protocol document provides for the procedure of the mayor picking 3 and then going by tenure order.
Okay, so she-
And so I think the idea was if everybody agreed not to do that and just stay on the same committees, then we would do that, but not everybody's agreeing.
Okay, so she has to go. Thank you for clarification. That's important, communication. Okay, Councilwoman Cobb, which committee you want to get on?
I really wanted to do the KEDC, my
You-
senior
you-
citizen
ma'am,
advisory.
Councilwoman,
Yes, ma'am.
You only get one.
Okay.
This is only one.
Okay. KEDC, I miss those early mornings.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So she wants KEDC. Madam Secretary, who all is on KEDC with me?
Currently, Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez and Councilmember Boyd.
Councilmember Boyd, Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez, one of you would like to go to another committee? Councilmember Boyd?
I prefer to stay on the committee, but we'll follow the process.
Okay, so one of you have to go because she's next in line to choose. According to the city attorney, she gets to pick, and that's the one she wants. That's between them. Okay, then Councilmember Boyd, you have
That
to
means I'll
find
have to find
another.
another committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
What committee are you giving up, Councilmember Cobb?
Well, I kind of like wanted KEDC, my
Okay,
senior citizen, and Centog.
okay.
I don't know how that would work, but I've just worked with them so closely, and Centog over
Okay,
30
so,
years.
yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. So the only thing we have, Ms. Councilmember Boyd, do you want to select another committee? Do we have any more vacancies? I don't know. Right, do you want to select another committee? If not, everybody else is okay. If you,
Sure, I'm interested in TERS, the TERS 2 board.
is that, I think that's full. Then we're gonna have to go one, oh, good, oh, we tried to
It's gonna be
board
one
this.
by one.
Yeah, we still gotta go through it, so let's start the ball game. All right, I picked mine. Councilmember Cobb, you said you wanted KEDC. Councilwoman Gonzalez. I can't hear you for the record.
KEDC for the record.
All right, so KEDC is completed. All slots are filled. Councilmember Boyd.
Okay, I'm just going to repeat the same recommendation, the TERS board, TERS number 2.
Okay. So that's 2 people on TERS. Councilmember Sagara.
I pass.
Councilmember Alvarez is absent. Councilmember Solomon. You choosing the committee.
I'd like to remain on
Which one?
which is the senior citizen.
Okay, Senior Advisory Board, yes. Okay, it's just one, and we'll come back around. Councilmember Adams.
SICOG alternate.
Councilmember Cobb.
Senior advisory,
Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez. Mayor?
Yes.
TERS, you got to speak in the mic, Mayor,
TERS
for
number
the record. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Sagara, you pass again?
Yeah.
Councilmember
Madam Mayor.
Alvarez.
Pardon, what committee did Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez?
remaining on TERS number 2.
TERS, okay, thank you.
That committee is filled because there's only 3 positions. Councilmember Alvarez is not here. Councilmember Solomon. Transportation.
Transportation Board.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Adams. Kate, you
Kate
got to speak
Tempo.
in the, okay, thank you. Councilwoman Cobb.
oh, I missed the Centog, CTCOG, the Central Texas Council of Government.
Oh, did I get you?
Yeah, you got yourself.
Oh, Councilmember Boyd,
Remaining on the Clean Audit Committee.
Audit Committee, okay. You know, audit. Councilwoman Cobb.
Another one?
You have KEDC and you have Senior Citizen Advisory Board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would love to go back to Centog, CTCOG, the Central
Ma'am.
Texas Council of Governments.
Yeah, yeah, you can, no, because it's one and I have an alternate. So he did Adams' place. He took
Oh,
Alvarez's place?
I was already on it.
What I
CIPCOG
need
is
to do?
remaining the same.
Okay. What do I need to do? Pick another one? I still get to volunteer.
Ma'am, Councilwoman Cobb, stand
Yes,
by.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you cannot have that one, it's already, it have been taken. You cannot pick another one.
Is there aviation? That's open?
We do, well, you do know they don't, oh, yes, ma'am, you can be, I'm not gonna go in details on that. Yes, ma'am, you can be on there, but they do not meet, but you can, aviation for Cobb.
Well, that sounds great.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yeah, I'm going to pass, madam.
okay. Councilman Boyd,
Remaining on the Development District of Central Texas.
Councilmember Cigar, you gonna pass again? Councilmember Solomon? So is everybody
Pass.
done? Okay,
Madam Mayor, I guess it's already bypassed. I still got animal, and I'll stay with the same ones, animal advisory, health district, and the YEC.
all right.
And
So-
I'm sorry, and sister cities.
Okay, is everybody else done? Councilman Boyd?
A question, how many folks do we have on K-Tempo as we speak?
One. Councilmember Solomon?
There's only one? And
You
yourself?
did, Adams took that one too?
This is on K-Tempo, and still 2 spots on K-Tempo.
Yes.
Did Councilman Alvarez communicate his desire for any boards?
No, sir.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. You have everything, Madam Secretary?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And
I have a question. I'm sorry.
yes, ma'am.
There's not an alternative to your CT, COG, your Central
Central Texas Council of Government? Councilmember Adams took that one.
Government.
It's our,
There's no alternative?
it's no, ma'am. We have an
Okay.
alternate,
I
but
work with-
council
I work
member,
with them. We gotta do something.
thank you, thank you. Madam Secretary, anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am, not on my side. Thank you.
So we can move on.
RS 24107, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation Aviation Division for the administration of a Federal Aviation Administration Airport Infrastructure Grant for the Automated Weather Observation System relocation project at Skylark Field.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Welcome back, Mr. Wilson. You have the next two.
Yes, ma'am. Just as was stated, this is a resolution that authorizes the city manager to sign a grant with TxDOT. Just a little bit of background, the bipartisan infrastructure law bill was signed into law on November 15th, 2021. It provides the FAA and Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, with $15 billion in airport infrastructure grants over a 5-year period for airport-related projects such as defined under the existing Airport Improvement Program and the PFC charge criteria. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here. All right, funding can be invested in runways, taxiways, safety and sustainability projects, as well as terminals,
Mayor.
airport transit
Let me say
connection.
something.
Councilwoman Cobb, please put your Zoom
sorry.
on mute, please. Thank you. I apologize for that.
No problem, ma'am. All right, the funding will be invested in runways, taxiways, safety areas, sustainability projects, as well as terminals and airport transit connections and roadways. Skylark Field has an FAA-owned and maintained AWAS system on the west side of the airport that provides pilots with critical safety information on cloud height, visibility, wind direction, speed, as well as other weather information to assist in safe flight operations. We've talked about this before, but the FAA has standards for keeping the areas within 1,000 feet of the AWAS clear of obstructions that would affect the ability of those sensors to collect the data accurately. The proposed Anthem Park development, when constructed, would cause the existing AWAS not to meet those FAA standards for the 1,000 feet radius. It's necessary to relocate the AWAS to a location that will meet the new standards for weather data collection. Aviation submitted a bipartisan infrastructure law bill, AIG application to the Texas Department of Transportation's Aviation Division, requesting to use bill AIG funds in the amount of $90,000 for the construction phase of the AWAS. This funding will be combined with previously approved funds from the TERS. It's not increasing the TERS, it's adding to the funding that's already there. The original amount of the funding that we proposed to you in the TERS is not changing. We're just adding additional grant funding from TxDOT to make sure we've got enough money to take care of the project. Skylark Field is a general aviation airport subject to the FAA's state block grant program. TxDOT, as such, TxDOT Aviation will be administering the grant on behalf of the FAA, and TxDOT requires the City Council to approve a resolution authorizing a designated individual to execute the grant agreement and all related documents pertaining to the grant. So the recommendation from staff is the City Council approve a resolution authorizing City Manager to execute any and all required documents, including all amendments pertaining to the Federal Aviation Airport Infrastructure Grant being administered by the Texas Department of Transportation's Aviation Division. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-108. Consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation Aviation Division for the administration of a Federal Aviation Administration Airport Infrastructure Grant for the new terminal building at Skylark Field.
Yes, this basically is the same slide as I just read with the previous grant, so I won't go through the whole thing. Aviation submitted a bill AIG application to TxDOT requesting bill funds in the amount of $358,000 to help fund the new terminal building and associated infrastructure at Skylark Field. This grant will be combined with the funding from the CO bond previously approved by the council in the amount of 2.7 and the FAA Bill Airport Terminal Program Grant in the amount of 1.5. Skylark Field, again, is a GA airport subject to FAA's block grant state. TxDOT will be administering the grant. They require the city to designate or approve a resolution designating an individual to execute the grant agreement. And our recommendation is that the council approve resolution authorizing the city manager to execute any and all required documents, including amendments pertaining to the Federal Aviation Airport Infrastructure Grant being administered by the Texas Department of Transportation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There are no questions.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24-109. Consider a memorandum resolution approving an intergovernmental support agreement for installation support services with the U.S. Army Garrison at Fort Cavazos, Texas.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Provost, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, and citizens of Killeen. So before you, exciting to bring forth the Intergovernment Service Support Agreement with the United States Army Garrison for installation support services at Fort Cavazos. On December 18th of 2018, City Council approved an Intergovernment Service Support Agreement, IGSA, with Fort Hood for airfield pavement maintenance at Robert Gray Army Airfield. This agreement included crack sealing, remarking, and minor pavement repairs on the runway, taxiways, and aprons. Aviation staff has negotiated a new IGSA with Fort Cavazos. Under the new agreement, the Aviation Department staff will provide a range of support services, including pavement maintenance, ground maintenance, fencing repairs, and airfield electrical work at both Robert Gray Army Airfield and Joachim Dufresne Army Heliport. The agreement also provides funding for major equipment purchases. The agreement for the initial one-year term is $2.955 million with an option to renew annually for up to additional 9 years. Each additional one-year term includes a cost escalation. The IGSA was a collaborative effort between the Aviation Department and Fort Cavazos staff and will be highly beneficial for both the city and Fort Cavazos. The recommendation is to approve the IGSA with the United States Army Garrison at Fort Cavazos, Texas, and authorize the city manager or designee to execute same as well as any and all amendments as allowed per federal, state, and local law. Pending any questions?
Yes. Sir?
Mr. Provost, thanks for the presentation. So if we were running our own tower and everything else for the airfield, the cost for us would be extremely high. And in this case, the Army's giving us money.
Yes, sir. So this agreement is going to span 10 years and approximately $34.5 million. And what we're doing is we're going to help maintain the airfield for Fort Cavazos. So actually, this IGSA is with the Department of Public Works on Fort Cavazos. So we're better equipped, have better resources, and are able to help keep the standards that we're known for and keep the airfields operating.
And so what I'm saying is when the original agreement was done in 2002, I think, as we decided to build this, we will be responsible for basic things while they still provided.
Yes, sir. So the initial lease agreement covers where we have some in-kind services that we still provide. And then a few years back, we actually had an IGSA where we're providing more additional services where the Army was paying us to provide those services, which was some minor asphalt painting and crack seal repair. This IGSA is expanding that to the entire Robert Gray Army Airfield to include the fence line for the electrical, the painting, the crack sealing for Robert Gray Army Airfield and Joachim Dufresne Heliport.
And so the point I'm getting is that the cost benefit analysis, we're still coming out on top.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Provost and Mr. Wilson, we thank you. Thank Fort Cavazos and our partnership, long partnership with them. Thank you all for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Solomon, did you have anything? Okay, I thought your light was on too. All right, Madam Secretary.
RS 24-110, consider a memorandum resolution granting an appeal to waive the parkland dedication requirements submitted by Colleen Engineering and Surveying on behalf of RSBP Incorporated and CTDC LLC for the proposed final plat of Heritage Oaks Phase 7 in accordance with Colleen Code of Ordinances, Section 26-162.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good evening, Mr. Revere.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This item, look like I'm having some challenges here. Oh, here we go. So this is an item to the appeal, the Parkland Dedication and Development Ordinance. This is associated with the final plat for Heritage Oaks Phase 7. That final plat was submitted on May the 6th. I propose is 41 single-family lots. It shows the location of the plat or the properties. It shows a layout of those 41 lots. As a part of meeting the final plat requirements, you have to meet the Parkland Dedication and Development requirements. In this particular case, the Parkland Dedication requirement would be the 0.613 acres. Alternatively, the ordinance provides that you could meet the parkland dedication requirement by paying fees of $77.50 per lot, which comes to about $30,750. And as was stated in the public comments, in addition to the parkland dedication, there's also a development fee requirement. The development fee would be paid by the applicant. They're not seeking a waiver of that. They're only seeking a waiver associated with the parkland dedication requirement. And so, as was stated earlier, this has to come before council per the ordinance. And staff is actually in support of this request. As stated here, the applicant did donate about 90.5 acres that was associated with this development several years ago. And as I said, we're recommending, as the council consider this item on next week, approval.
Thank you, Mr. Revere. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-111, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Clark's Associates, PLLC, for the design of the reuse water for golf course irrigation project in the amount of $99,650.
Mr. Revere.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request associated with golf course irrigation. There is a different method that we would like to pursue as it relates to irrigating the golf course. As noted in the background, in 1990, the city of Killeen entered an agreement with Killeen Willows in order to allow for the golf course to be irrigated by pumping water from Willows Lake. That water that was pumped from Willows Lake during that time period where that was being done in the past has either been replenished by using water from South Nolan Creek or portable water or reuse water from WCID 38th Street sewer treatment plant. However, in July of 2019, TCEQ informed the city that reuse water could not be used to replenish the Willows Lake levels because that water was considered to be waters of the state. As a result of that, just some more background, using TCEQ's guidance, the city discontinued using reuse water and started using portable water again to replenish Willows Lake. The city staff has recently researched several opportunities to look at trying to make sure that we meet our agreement requirements associated with maintaining the levels in Willows Lake, as well as to meet TCEQ requirements about using the right source of water, as well as overall be cost effective as it relates to providing irrigation for the golf course. As a result, the city has negotiated a professional service agreement with Clark and Associates for full design and bid services and contract administration that would involve the installation of a new ground storage tank at the golf course. And basically the way that would work is that reuse water from WCID treatment plant would be basically piped to the golf course, and it would go into that tank, and then water from that golf course, from that tank, would be used to actually irrigate the golf course. In doing that, as you can see on the slides, there would not be a need to be concerned about waters of the state because we won't be affecting pulling water from Willows Lake. And then in addition to that, the portable water that we are currently using to replenish Willows Lake would no longer need to be done because we would be using the water that's pumped to the new ground storage tank on the golf course for irrigation of the golf course. So we're seeking on next week for approval of this design contract for the amount that is mentioned, along with the ability for the city manager or designee to execute any and all change orders within the state law.
Thank you, Ms. Revere. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-112, 112, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the procurement of 4 refuse trucks for the Public Works Solid Waste Residential Division in the amount of $1,784,484.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good evening, Mrs. Tangleman.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, council members. This item is for the procurement of refuse trucks for Public Works. Public Works Solid Waste Residential Division is an immediate need for replacing 2 existing refuse trucks that have met their service life. And also this item will be adding 2 trucks to assist with the city's growth. The units are automated side loader type refuse trucks dedicated to residential trash pickup. The 2 units being replaced were scheduled to be ordered in fiscal year 2025, but due to long lead times in obtaining equipment and the funding being available now, it is deemed necessary to purchase the replacement and additional units now. The procurement information, the cost of the 4 refuse trucks is $1,784,484. The units to be purchased from Bond Equipment Company utilizing BIBOR, and the funding is available in the Solid Waste CIP fund. Staff recommend the City Council authorize the purchase of the 4 refuse trucks for the Public Works Solid Waste Residential from Bond Equipment Company in the amount of $1,784,484, and that the city manager or designee be authorized to execute any and all change orders as permitted by state and local law. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Tangleman. There was a question during the citizen comments, but the reason was because it was backdated, and then you had to come back and you ordered it because of whatever complication was at that time, and now you purchasing the vehicles now.
Yes, there were some delays, and now we're purchasing 2 plus we're adding 2 more.
Yes, ma'am. This is not something that you just thought about. It was already in the plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Council member.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to call you and ask you this because it's really not a, how are we able to do something using TASB, the Texas Association of School Board?
The BIBOR?
Yeah. Is that something that cities can, I guess?
Yes, it's part of the cooperative. That's what we use, BIBOR, TIPS, the IRS.
And it doesn't matter, oh, okay, never mind.
We are exempt for having different quotes or for RFP if we use one of them.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I understand the BIBOR process.
Yes, sir.
It's just the TASB one specifically, but
It's part of the BIBOR,
okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-113, consider a memorandum resolution approving the issuance of a tax-exempt note by the Oglesby Cultural Facilities Corporation for Heart of Texas Goodwill Industries Incorporated, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Mrs. Tangleman, welcome back, and Mr. Clark.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Mr. Clark is over here to present this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address you. So I am assisting the Heart of Texas Goodwill Industries. They are planning a new facility here in Killeen. And because of the type of facility they have, they are eligible for to borrow money on a tax-exempt basis, similar to the way that a city or a county could. And as part of that, because they're not actually a governmental entity, they have to go through a process where they use another governmental entity to issue the debt for them. And so as part of that process, we have to go through a hearing and an approval process for the area where that project's going to be. So because that's in the city of Killeen, we have to come to you and do that. So just a quick, and this may have already come in front of you, but it's going to be an approximately 22,400 square foot building. It will be their typical retail store, a warehouse, and a community center. They're planning about an 18-month construction timeline. And so what they're doing is they've gone to Extraco banks and asked for the loan. So it's about a $7 million project. And so we found the city of Oglesby, Texas, which is in McLennan County, has an Oglesby Cultural Facilities Corporation, which is eligible to issue these, this type of debt. And so we've gone through and we've had, notice was issued. We've had the public hearing. The city of Oglesby has approved it. And now we're coming to the city of Killeen asking for your approval. Now, what this approval, this doesn't have anything to do with, you know, approving the permitting, the zoning or anything like that. And it's also not actually, doesn't have anything to do with debt for the city of Killeen. This is specifically a requirement for the Internal Revenue Code as part of the tax code. And so it's just one of those boxes that we have to check. So I'm happy to answer questions. I know this is a little bit unusual, but something that does come up often in these sorts of
Yes,
transactions.
sir. I think you stressed it the best, and Mr. Cagle, I just whispered to him to tell him to stress it even more. This is not our debt. This
No.
is just a process that they have to go through. And Mr. Cagle, I'm gonna make sure you hit it home.
Yes,
for
ma'am.
me.
It's not a debt of the city. We don't have to pay any money. And furthermore, if something were to fail and they couldn't pay their bonds back, this is not a city of, it wouldn't show up in records as a city of Killeen default. It would be the Public Facilities Corporation of Oglesby. So
Correct.
this is the only thing as far as financing that you would have is this vote. And then it's all on them, and it's another construction project in the city that goes through all the same processes as any other one. But once again, no city money involved, no city debt incurred, no delayed, no future payments, no obligation.
It's just a process that, the way the process work, it has to come before us.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your time.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24-114, consider a memorandum resolution supporting the application to National Park Service for Land and Water Conservation Fund, State Assistance plus Readiness and Recreation Initiative, FY24, for West Side Regional Park Phase 1, in the cost estimated amount of $8,300,000.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and welcome back, Mr. Provost.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and citizens of Killeen. So before you is the 2024 LWCF State Assistance plus Readiness and Recreation Initiative for the West Side Regional Park, Phase 1. The Land and Water Conservation Fund State and Local Assistance SLA program provides grants to the states and through them local units of government for projects that will provide outdoor recreation opportunities to the public. The Department of Defense Readiness Environmental Protection Integration, the REPI program, protects the nation's military readiness, enhances relationships with the communities, preserves the environment, and improves military installation community resilience to climate change. Applications are due to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department or state lead agency partner for this grant by June 28th, 2024. The items eligible for funding are planning costs, outdoor recreation amenities, trails, and facilities such as restrooms and changing areas. The Readiness and the Recreation Initiative will seek to fund projects that will acquire and enhance lands for public outdoor recreation that are also within the geographical scope of an agreement between the state and local government or a conservation-focused non-government entity and the military department pursuant to 10 USC Code 2684 Alpha. The LWCF Act generally requires that a program projects be cost-shared with non-federal, state, local, or non-government or private funds at a ratio of 1 to 1. Currently, our request is for $8.3 million estimated for the cost of this project. The city's match will be $4.15 million for Phase 1. And here is a map depicting the West Side Regional Park. And Phase 1 is actually everything that you have in front of you highlighted in blue, which is the main entrance, the fishing piers, the inner loop trail, the large lakeside pavilion, and the family pavilions, which is estimated for Phase 1. Our recommendation is for the City Council to approve the resolution of support of the application to NPS for LWCF State Assistance plus Readiness and Recreation Initiative FY24 application for the West Side Regional Park Phase 1. Pending any
Thank
questions.
you, sir. There are no questions. You have the next item.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24-115, consider a memorandum resolution declaring a vacancy on the Clean Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and appointing a member to fill the unexpired term.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Provost.
Yes, ma'am. So before you is the Park and Recreation Advisory Board appointment. The mayor and the city council make annual appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees each year and as vacancies occurs. This one requires a District 1 council member's recommendation. A board member recently resigned from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, creating a vacancy, and the city council's action is required to declare a vacancy and make an appointment to fill the unexpired term. The council member that resigned was Ms. Holly Teal. And the recommendations for city council to declare a vacancy and appoint an individual to fill vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mr. Provost. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a name?
Thank you. Juan Marshall?
Say it so they can hear you.
Is that not, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Juan Marshall?
Juan Marshall? Okay.
Okay, that is the recommendation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Provost.
Yes, ma'am.
We will now take a 5-minute break. Let the record show Councilmember Solomon is back in the back, and he will be on the dais soon. And Mayor Pro Tem is still on Zoom. Mayor Pro Tem? We're gonna leave that there.
Councilwoman Cobb, I'm here.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure you was there. Thank you. You just frozen. Madam Secretary, ordinance.
You looking for me?
No, ma'am. Would you please put yourself on mute?
You're I did.
OR 24007, consider an ordinance adopting an exemption from ad valorem taxes for qualifying child care facilities to apply to the tax year beginning January 1st, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mrs. Drake.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this item was presented on May 21st. I gave this same presentation, so I'm just going to go over the highlights. For State Proposition 2, this was passed, and for Bell County, the 63.6% was for this proposition. For qualifying child care facilities, it would be for owner-operators that participate in the Texas Workforce Commission's Texas Rising Star Program, and at which at least 20% of the total number of children enrolled at the facility receive subsidized child care services. And if any property owner leases property to one of the qualifying child care facilities, they would be able to provide a specific affidavit form certifying that the property owner has provided the child care facility with a reduced rent charged for the lease of the property that fully reflects the reduction of the property tax exemption. So the fiscal impact, we were able to identify there are 30 providers listed with agreements on the Texas Workforce Commission website, and the fiscal impact at 50% of tax exemption would be $30,000 in revenue loss, and at 100% tax exemption, it would be $60,000. So on May 21st, when this was presented, council provided a motion of direction to bring this back with a 100% exemption option. And just to note, if passed, the property tax exemption for real property of qualifying child care facility would be effective for January 1st, 2025, which is the 2025 tax year, which is our fiscal year 2026 budget. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mrs. Drake. There are no questions. Public hearing, Madam Secretary. Oh, public hearing will be held on June 25th, 2024. Council, you have 2 times each to speak for 5 minutes. Madam Secretary.
PH 24023, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance requested by Raymond Hamden on behalf of Rayham LLC, Series 108, case number DA 2403, to amend the corporate limits of the City of Killeen, Bell County, Texas, by disannexing approximately 5 acres out of the W.H. Bruce Survey, abstract number 1296, being locally addressed as 13365 FM 2484, Salado, Texas, declaring said land to no longer be a part of the City of Killeen.
Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Revelle.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request for petition to disannex property that is located approximately where the star is. That is the exact location of the property. The council has already heard 2 other petitions. There was one for this property at this location and one for this property at this location as well. So this would be the 3rd one. The subject property was annexed to the city December 2007. It's currently zoned agricultural residential. And then the property is not contiguous to a larger existing city limits. And the city does not currently provide the subject property with any municipal services. It's very similar to the other 2 that you all considered. And that's showing the location of the property again. It's approximately 5 acres. And staff is recommending that this petition for disannexation be approved as presented, and we feel as if this would be mutually beneficial for the applicant as well as the city.
I have a question, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there a cost associated with the petition to disannex? Is there a cost associated with a petition to disannex?
Yes, our disannexation cost, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is $500.
Okay, I'm asking because it looks like the same area is going through a period of these to knock them all out. And I was wondering if there's some type of package or anything that's available where they're not having to pay $500 each time, with the properties being abutting each other like we've seen so far.
And I do need to follow up on that for you too. I know coming into our new fee schedule, we clarified that. So let me follow up on that fee, but I believe it's $500.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay.
PH 24024, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance authorizing the 2024-2025 annual action plan describing use of funds and authorizing application for and allocation of community development, block grant, and home investment partnerships program funds. First of 2 public hearings.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you this evening, the fiscal
Good
year.
evening, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Smith, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Great, great.
Thank you. The item before you this evening, the fiscal year 25 block grant and home grant request. Little background information. The City of Killeen is an entitlement community and thus receives an annual award funding from HUD for block grant and home investment partnerships. For block grant activities, they must meet one of 3 national objectives. And for home activities, they must be used for affordable housing initiatives. Here you will see our grant cycle timeline for this program year 24, where we started in January, and where you are today in June receiving the recommendations. The City of Killeen, we must seek input from the community, so we're required to hold 2 public hearings and then submit our annual action plan to HUD for approval, and that's in the month of August. The Community Development Advisory Committee convenes to review, evaluate, and recommend the funding awards for the proposed activities that are submitted. And those applications are scored on these 4 dimensions. Sorry. For the program year 24, the entitlement received from HUD, along with reprogrammed funds available for block grant, you have just a little under $500,000, $1.5 million for block grant funds. The chair for the Community Development Advisory Committee, Mr. Johnny Frederick, will present the recommendations to you.
Madam Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Manager, it's a pleasure to be here to speak to you all this evening about the recommendations from the Community Development Block Grant Committee that's appointed by y'all. As is always the case, we have requests for a lot more money than we have to give out. So it's always a challenge to pick out the best programs and fund them as fully as we can. This year, we had probably about $60,000 more in requests than we had funds to do. Let me first start off, 15% of the grant is eligible for public service funding requests. So I'm going to go through the recommendations real quickly. Bring everyone in the zone, $5,727. Communities and schools, $19,000. Families in crisis, $25,000. The Greater Killeen Community Clinic, $25,000. The Hill Country Community Action, which is Meals on Wheels, $7,207. And the KPD, the Community Engagement Unit, $5,000. Public service requests are the balance of the grant excluding administration, and we had several of those. The Clean Reunification Program had requested $108,000, and we're recommending $101,207. I'm sorry, that's a staff recommendation. The committee actually recommended $70,000 because we wanted to be able to fund the Elderly Transportation Program. Some funds became available from the city in this year's budget, as it has in the past, to fund that elderly transportation program. We were not able to get a quorum together for a meeting to change our recommendation, but I would believe that in speaking to the ones that were at the meetings that we had and where we did not have a quorum, they would go along with the recommendation for $101,207 to fund the master social worker for the reunification program. And then the City of Killeen Elderly Transportation Program, which is such an important part to our elderly in Killeen, we're going to give them, recommended them $10,793 with the balance of their needs coming from a city budget item. That's a total of $198,934, which is the amount of money that we had to donate to recommend for those.
Sir, before you go forward.
Yes, ma'am.
I know there are some questions in reference to the funding that went out and why that amount. So I'm gonna go with Councilmember Boyd, and then Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez gonna ask my question too. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First question, and thank you for the presentation. Who determines their percentage for the entitlements?
HUD determines that. 15% of the grant can be used for public service organizations. The balance of the grant is public facilities and public service organizations are the balance of the grant.
Thank you for that information, because I had a summary of questions, but that just made everything make sense for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. So on the elderly transportation, the transportation program, it looks like the request was $42,000, and you stated that the balance of the needs come from the city budget item. Can you explain to me, is that like a match, or is the city putting in the difference to get them to that $42,000, or how does that process work?
I believe the city manager can probably answer that better than I can.
That going forward, that will be part of our contract with the Hill Country Transit District. If you recall, it was about a year or so ago, we'd been using a taxi company for this for a long time. That was a very low-cost option, and they decided to retire and close down their business. And we moved it over to Hill Country Transit, started making that, giving that service, and it's part of our contract with them.
Understood. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Madam Mayor, thanks. I didn't have a question. I thank you for all what y'all are doing. I haven't been on the committee. That's a hard task to decide who gets what. But my question is, was there an increase of funds this year compared to over last year?
I don't know the answer to that. Ms. Smith?
There was a slight increase in funds, and I'm sorry, I should have had that available from last year in block grant, but there was a decrease in home funds.
Thanks. And then you guys, you in your process, so for council and citizen edification, you conduct a public meeting to gain the information, the priorities before you sit down and do this, still correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We actually have each of the applicants come in, and we give them a time to make a presentation and answer questions from the committee to determine who is eligible and how much we're willing to recommend to fund for each of those.
And then before that, you still getting input from the citizens, the public?
Yes, sir.
To determine what our priorities are?
Yes, sir. There are 2 public meetings that are held in January, February for the community as a whole to come in and talk about the different things that the city needs, what they consider their priorities. And then we use the scoring program on the applications to be able to see how they fit those priorities that the city people have, citizens have designated that they feel like need to be addressed.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Solomon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to know, I noticed that families in crisis, of course, they've got, recommendation is 25. And then I'm looking here at Hill Country Meals on Wheel. They requested 13.6, and they only recommendation was 7. I'm just concerned about the senior citizens. I know the families in crisis. What was the last year, if you can recall, what we gave families in crisis?
I don't believe we gave them anything last year.
Okay, and did not they receive a grant?
I don't know the answer to that question, sir.
It was for housing. Is that what you're talking about, Ms. Kay? So, Ms. Smith. So, thank you, sir. Both of you can come up there together. So would you ask your question again for both of them, please, Ms.?
My question is, with families in crisis, of course, they received 25, but did not they received some type of grant? I know we assisted them last year.
The ARPA funds,
Yes.
Two different things.
What is? Okay, 2 different things. You're talking families in crisis is the 2.
One of them is friends in crisis and family in crisis.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
Oh, no problem. Any more questions? Oh, that's you, Councilman Solomon. Councilmember Cobb, do you have any questions?
Mayor, she got disconnected. We're trying to get her back.
Okay, Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. City Manager, where does this put us with code enforcement officers once this is approved?
If this is approved, it would continue the 1 code enforcement officer that we're funding and add 1 more.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I thank you both, and I am for the reunification, the social worker. I cannot clap because that's against policy. I'm just going to do a wave in the air. That just tells me that we're moving closer and closer to completing that project. So that is much needed, a social worker. So I am really excited, and thank you all and the individuals that volunteered their time to assist. Ms. Smith, thank you, and Ms. McNair is not here So we're gonna finish the slides, 'cause I know you have some more to go.
Yeah, we
Yes,
have the
sir.
home program as well. Get that back up.
Did she get reconnected?
Yeah, we have one more within that group that did not receive any funding. We Care had asked for some funds for a boost program that they're rolling out around the country to work with daycare centers. And the program has not been done in Texas. They're going to start it up in the Austin area this year, we understand. And so we felt like until we had some background on them and could see how well it worked, we chose not to fund that. And that was under an economic development portion that those funds can be used for. In the past, we've never done economic development through community development block grant funds. So we chose not to recommend any money for that. And then for code enforcement, the city had requested $58,000, $465, which was the forward commitment of 3 years that we agreed to do to hire somebody on rather than doing 1 year at a time. And this is the final year of that, and we're recommending you fund that. And for going forward, we are looking for another 3-year forward funding agreement where we agree to set that money aside in forward-thinking years of $61,972.64. There we go. City of Clean building inspections was asking for $120,000 for abatement of unsafe buildings around the city, and we're recommending you fund that for $120,000. The Community Reunification Connections Program, it asked for $6,650 to make the total funding that we had available with everything. We're recommending $641,732.94 for a total of $882,170.58. And for a administration of the CDBG program, a portion of the grant can be used for that, and we're recommending you fund that for $245,80. And the home grant, which is a separate grant, basically comes from HUD as well, but can only be used in housing programs, affordable housing activities. We're recommending an amount of $400,327.50 for a community development organization, the CHOTO set aside that we're required to set aside for community housing development organizations, which we currently don't have any, but we're still required to set that money aside, the amount of $80,065.50. 10% of the grant can be used for administrating the home program funds, which is $53,377 for a total of $533,770 for the home program. And the administration requests and recommendations, it's the same one I had, isn't it? Yes, ma'am.
I did. I was just curious how much abatement could we expect is possible or could be carried out with that $120,000?
According to the presentation made, they can use that $120,000 within the next fiscal year.
Okay. Right. I'm asking how much abatement could they probably accomplish with that?
They said approximately $12,000 per unit
Okay.
is what they spend to abate a house or a building that's needs to be taken down.
Thank you.
Mhm. I believe that's all we had, Madam Mayor. I'm going to let Ms. Smith.
Thank you, sir.
We will have a citizens comment period that we're required to have, a 30-day citizen comment period that will be from June 23rd through July 23rd. And then your next steps, June 23rd will be, the notice will be published in the Killeen Daily Herald and on the city's website. And then the second, a public hearing, which will be scheduled for the 23rd, and approval of ordinance with your council recommendations. And finally, our submission to HUD for our annual action plan. And around October 1st is when the annual plan should be approved and release of funding by HUD. Are there any questions?
No, ma'am, y'all did an excellent job in answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Items for discussion at workshop. Council, you have 2 times each for 5 minutes to speak. Madam Secretary.
TS 24039, discuss establishment of a charter review committee for the Clean City Charter.
Is there any slides? Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So future agenda item request that was already approved for now, and I'm asking, our charter is a foundation document for our government, and over time, changes in our local community and legal environment and operational best practices can make certain aspects of the charter less effective or outdated. To ensure that our charter continues to reflect the needs and values of our diverse population and remains compliant with current laws and practices, a comprehensive review is necessary. This review will not only evaluate the current efficiency of the charter, but also identify areas where updates or amendments could enhance governance, increase transparency, and improve services for Killeen citizens. Furthermore, a charter review committee comprised of members representing a cross-section of our community can provide insights and recommendations that reflect the collective voice and diverse perspectives of our students. I'm proposing the formation of a charter review committee tasked with the thorough examination of Killeen City Charter. The committee should conduct a comprehensive review of the charter, evaluating its effectiveness in current governance, identify sections of the charter that require updates, amendments, or revisions to meet contemporary legal, social, and operational standards, engage with the community to gather input and feedback on potential changes, submit a detailed report with recommendations for amendments or revisions to the City Council, and then present findings in a manner ensuring all recommendations align with the city's vision and legal framework. Membership should include 7 citizens, 8 citizens and 1 staff liaison, possibly from the city attorney's office as an advisor. So I'm requesting the council support in establishing this committee, and I suggest we start a timeline for the nomination of members, commencement of the process, and a deadline for submitting the final report.
Thank you. Are there any comments before I speak? Mayor Pro Tem.
I do have a question. Can you restate the approval process for amendments? Did you touch on that?
For
amendments for the charter review?
Well, all the amendments will be on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
That's already in the.
That's pretty much established already. Thank you.
Councilwoman Cobb. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman Cobb, do you have any comments? Councilmember Boyd?
I don't.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would you mind repeating the section that included contemporary changes? I don't remember the whole phrase. It was kind of the purpose of it, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll go back and read my notes. On contemporary changes as in the operational environment and the legal framework.
Which is the purpose of this, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's important to highlight. I do believe this is important at this time for our city. I do have a concern about the number of citizens, and I could be wrong. I think this deserves a council discussion on the number of citizens. I personally don't think 8 is enough. We're talking about charter amendments for the city. I don't know what that number might be, but I mean, that's a robust discussion. I don't believe 8 citizens should be responsible for those amendments, the many amendments potentially for the charter. That's all I have.
Councilmember Segarra.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we do have precedents. I mean, we've done this 2 years ago, and we've done it several times over the years. And if we can go and look and see how I've done it, because I know that having citizens is a great idea, but what happens a lot of times is, the one that has final authority is the council. And then, they make recommendations, and then we're changing everything that they do because, they're coming from a different perspective. I know that we work with our attorney quite a bit when we do these charter amendments because there's a lot of things in there that has to do with legalities and things like that. So it's very important that if there is a committee that, somebody that understands is part of that. But as I said, you don't want to have too many because if you have too many, then really nothing gets done because ultimately it's going to come before the council. And I know a couple of years ago, it wasn't too bad because there was just a couple of changes. The only thing that was very challenging was the pay raises that the council got. I know that that became a contested issue, but other than that, everything else was pretty straightforward. And if it's a lot of straightforward stuff, then I don't even know if we need council members. You know, if we're looking at legalities, updates and things like that, not council members, excuse me, citizens, because a lot of times they don't know that. And so that's why I say I think that we got a lot of those recommendations from our staff and city staff and the city attorney on what needed to be changed. So I would recommend that we do that first before we go out there and see what other changes, because there's certain changes that staff has to do, city has to do, and then there's other staff like pay raise or whatever it is that we want, and those can get contested. So that would be my recommendation is have the staff review it first, and then we can definitely still do the committee. But you know, before we put it out there, come back with recommendations.
Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just for clarity, so you're just referring that the city staff bring back the recommendations of the provisions that have already been in place before, was already established before?
Yeah, any changes, because I know we did some changes and changes that they would like to see that kind of update things on the city. And then from there, we can just continue on and add on. But I would like to see the staff, the city attorney and all that, go through it first.
If I could speak to that?
Oh, of course.
So whether you go through, whether the charter committee is the council or citizens or a mixture of council and citizens, we can review, staff, including the city attorney's office, will review that and recommend any changes regarding legal changes that we believe are required, or practical changes from staff, and we can make that recommendation. If it's a council review, we'll make that recommendation to council during that review. If it's a charter committee first, we'll make that recommendation to the charter committee, and then when it comes to council, we'll make that recommendation again to council if it's a change that we believe that is legally required.
Anyone else? Please. Oh, that's your third time, but do y'all have a problem with him doing the third?
That was my second time.
That's your second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead on, sir.
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do like the idea of the incorporation of citizens, staff, and of course, by default, the council. That is good. My only concern is, well, it's actually not a concern. I think that's important because the conversation may even come up on what type of government we want to be. Right now, we're council manager form of government. The charter includes the opportunity to be a strong mayor form of government, et cetera. So again, this is a very robust discussion, and I do think it's going to involve basically all parties on deck to have that discussion. That's all I got.
Councilmember Solomon.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I would like to know the process that we went through in regards to Councilman Segarra. From what I understand, the council did that review, what, 2 years ago, 3 years?
Yes, I'm gonna let the city attorney give you the correct information. Madam City Attorney, Councilman Solomon, question was the process that we did 2 years ago when this council went through the charter, which is a long process. They went through could you explain that process, please?
I sure can.
Thank you.
The charter, we had a charter election in May of 2022, and that review happened mostly in the fall of 2021, and it was a council, the city council was the charter review committee. There were no citizens appointed to a separate charter review committee. I think we have to look back to probably 2018 was another charter election, but I think we have to look to 2013 is the last time a charter review committee was actually stood up, separate from council itself.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. These are my comments on this. The charter is sacred. It's a sacred document. It's just like the Constitution of the United States of America. The charter is what dictates how this city is ran. And this is something that you or me or anyone else cannot take lightly. We went through it, Councilmember Segar is correct, we went through it 2 years, and we went into details. It's extremely a long process. And when you do a charter, you get it right. I can understand if our council have changed, well, Councilmember Solomon, Councilmember Alvarez. So whatever this committee we decide, whether it's 7, 4, 5, it does not represent 158,000 plus people. Even when we went through the charter, it was not in detail. We're asking 4, 5, or 6 people to go through the charter and go in detail. This is just another committee. Staff gonna have to take up their time. It's not like they don't have any other committee, any job, especially during budget season. And we're asking them to team up with them to go in detail with the charter based on 7 of us and how many other people you put on this committee. And this charter is not only for this council, but it's gonna be I know it's gonna go to the ballot. Yes, you're gonna put it on there, but it's only what 12, 20 people say. Then we say we're gonna send a survey, we're gonna reach out to other people, and I understand the purpose of a charter review because 2 years ago, we requested that. And if we would have followed it 2 years ago, we would have went in detail as Councilmember Segarra requested it 2 years ago, but we didn't. I just don't want us to take this lightly, that we really take some time to think about this, because this is our city charter. Mr. Boyd, you can speak up. You talking to Adams, you can speak in your mic so I can hear it.
Madam Mayor, I didn't say anything.
So whatever the council decide, I just want us to make sure that the council member, Segarra, and I guess I go back to him because he's been a former mayor, and he's been on here the longest, and he's seen a lot of stuff and how this can go good and how this can go bad. But one of the things he said, I agree with. The caliber of people that you're asking to sit on this review board, they got to have some kind of working knowledge and understanding, because if not, our city attorney, which we already know her caseload, or our assistant city manager, and we're constantly piling on them new projects, they're going to have to take out their time and walk them through the process. This is something that, if you do it right. And what I heard tonight is not enough details to say how long this process is going to be, what caliber of people, what type of people do you want, what are they looking for? We just went through this 2 years ago. So only thing in my mind, there's going to be some major, this is already in play. I can't stop it. When it hit here, it was in play. I can't stop what's going to happen. I know the vote is here. But the point I'm trying to make, do not take this lightly. When we make the decision, get the 4 votes or 5, that we have the right people, we have a timeline, and we need to give them some kind of guideline. What are you looking for, council? You have spoken twice, Councilwoman Gonzalez, have you? Oh, ask your question. Go on, yeah, you didn't talk. You can talk, Mayor Pro Tem.
So in general, the question I do have actually now is that when Madam Rashawn Smith spoke regarding her the CDBG projects and such, they did something that was a little different, which I also found interesting as far as being efficient with time. I do think it's important to have citizen input in this process, but I do want to be obviously very cautious about some of the points that that the Madam Mayor has brought up. They are opening up their window for a 30-day period for citizens across the city to submit recommendations to the board, according to her presentation. Would it not be feasible to do something similar to that as it relates to the charter, so that as the citizens have that 30-day window across the city of Killeen to submit their information or feedback, that we then review it? Would that not be a more feasible option?
That was discussed in a general statement. I wasn't expecting to have, the idea was to bring this back for approval with all that in details after I sat down with staff to do that. I didn't think that was at this meeting to do that. So the process, because that process that CDBG, the CDAC did is one that I helped put together. Well, the second part is required by law. We have to do a 30-day comment. We can do that the same as this. We can take our time. Either we decide if we're the council, we're the committee, or we're appointing committee members after we review applications. I don't think we should just ask anybody off the street. It has to be people that we think, you know, whether it's lawyers, former council members, former mayors, whatever. But the idea I had was a basic framework of how I think it should happen over a period. Then they come back to us with enough time for us to deliberate, and we decide whether to put that on the ballot, and within enough time to get it on the ballot with the Secretary of State's reporting requirements.
Thank you. So Councilmember Adams, since this is not detailed and you bringing this to the council, what I highly recommend this be tabled and you bring something back to them and make it in detail after talking to staff, because there's no need of voting on something that is not concrete.
But we can't vote tonight anyway.
I mean,
so-
motion of direction.
So the idea was to come back with some concrete when we actually have
Okay.
to vote on it.
Councilmember Solomon, you have, this is your last time.
Okay, my question is, what is, if we went over this 3 years ago, what is the purpose of it now? Why are we reviewing it now? I mean, is it something that a lot of things that we saw in the charter that we needed? Or is this just every 3 years we supposed to do this?
It was 2 years ago, and that's what Councilmember
I just wanna
Sagara
know,
just said, but we're gonna go back to Councilmember Adams.
I might, Mayor, if it's okay. First, so I didn't put exact timelines because when we tabled whether to have a future agenda item question, I waited to now to even present what my idea of the timeline. So I know I need to come back to
I'm
put the
sorry,
exact.
his question.
Oh, go ahead.
His question, will you ask your question, please?
My
Again.
question was, why are we doing this? What reason is this? Do we have to do the review? Is it something that we just want to go back over? I'm just trying to.
One of the
find a
things that
reason.
motivated me was, one of them was how citizen petitions were handled that go into that we vote to approve. That's just one item, not the ongoing thing. And then noticing that we have items in there that may need to be adjusted to the times, because the last review, we focused on specific areas. And in my opinion, I thought we needed to review some more, because just listening to the conversations across the city or former council members, former mayors, even some of you guys, things that only can be addressed in the charter, but not through governance standards or ordinance. And I think maybe some things,
Councilmember Adams, stand by. Councilmember Cobb, would you please put your video Zoom on mute, please? We can hear you. I apologize, Councilmember Adams.
and then just a
Continue.
correction, Councilmember Solomon, it's every 2 years. And we couldn't do it this year because the election was 2 days after the last time we voted. So this will take us.
No, city attorney want to speak on that.
Just to clarify, you can't do it any more frequently
right,
than
than
every 2 years.
correct,
So you
thanks.
don't have to do it every 2 or 3 or 4
It's not
years. You can't do
required.
it any more frequently than every 2 years.
Right.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, to further, an idea like what the mayor said is, if nothing happens from this, then so be it, because if we don't think changes need to be made. But I do think this is something we take to heart.
Right, I want to clarify that. I'm not saying there's not changes. I'm not saying changes are not needed, but that's a council decision. Only thing I said, as well as we went through the process and the council, because I'm listening. I'm just not talking just to be talking. I'm listening to the conversations. So there's already in your mind, citizen petition, you didn't like that. You already just said some things you don't like. So if it's something the council don't like, then let the council deal with that. Why go through a detailed review of it, or we already went through that 2 years ago. Now, if it's something we want to change, there are some things I want to change. So I just don't want to waste the staff time when it's something that we want, and Councilmember Sagara was on point. If the residents already give their input and we come back and we don't like it and we changed it, we just waste their time. That's all. That's what I meant on that. Councilwoman Cobb.
Mayor, council,
We're gonna come back to you because we cannot understand you. I'm not being funny. You froze. I'm smiling. I'm not laughing, I'm smiling. Put yourself on mute till you can get your face unfroze. Mayor, Councilwoman Cobb, you froze. Put yourself on mute. We'll get back to you when you, just unfreeze your face. Oh, Lord. Would you put yourself on mute, please? Please? We'll come back. Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, she not gonna put it on. Okay, try your best to get it out. Even though we can't hear you, we don't understand you, but go ahead on. Can she call me and I put it on speaker so we can hear her? Is that legal to do? That we can't call her from the dais. No, we can't touch these phones. Is that legal to do?
The statute requires video and audio to be visible and.
Okay, well, she
and heard
froze.
and-
All right, so why don't you disconnect and come back to see us? All right, bye-bye. Councilwoman Cobb, please. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sagara. How wrong?
Thank you. I just want to follow Mr. Solomon, because that would be my question, why do we change? I know that, I don't know if it was 2 years ago or the prior year, there was some administrative changes that had to be done, and so we had to do that. And so that was one of the requirements. And then if it does make it to the point where we're making changes, and I don't know what you call them, articles or whatever, that we put on the ballot, because I know last time that we did, there was a lot of discussion, but when it came down to it, as council, we voted. And, we had to have a majority on each one, and those that did not make it, well, they never made it on the ballot. And I know we went back and forth with a few things. I know what Mr. Boyd kind of briefly talked about was discussed, changing the way we said, no, we're not going to do that. We need smart people here. And then we went back and forth with the money and all that. So I think I see that, ultimately it's going to be up to the council. And like the mayor, I think that if it does make it out there, or we have these discussions, I think that the council needs to get feedback. That's okay. But ultimately, we need to sit down and say, this is what I want with the staff, and do it. Because I think that it can get contested. I mean, we're seeing that right now, and we don't need to go that road. And I'm like with Mr. Solomon, if we don't need to go down that road, don't do it. Because if there's anything major that needs to be changed, then by all means. But right now, unless there's something, and we can have that discussion as council members and say, you know what, I want to change this, and let's have a discussion. I don't know if that's allowed, and then vote and say if this is something we want to change on their charter before we go through this whole process. Otherwise, it may take it to the point where we have all these recommendations, and at the end, nothing changes. And so that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, everyone has spoken twice. Is there a motion or direction? Then everyone has spoken twice. Where do we go from here? Councilmember Adams.
I think I just answered questions. I wasn't able to actually speak other than this presentation.
So other than that?
I hear what you are saying about that, but that it's not I know creating committee is not the end of the world.
Councilmember Adams, she's spoken twice. Do you have a motion or direction?
Madam Mayor, one of those was answering questions.
Okay.
It wasn't my actual time. And I do have a motion of direction that I'll just do that. I move that we proceed with the development and creation of the committee for presentation at the next workshop.
I'm going to second it.
All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Councilmember Solomon. Councilmember Cobb back on? She's gone. All right, it's 3-2. What was your,
I can go ahead and provide with the lawyer, just to proceed with the proposal that I had, at the development of the committee with all the details that y'all were asking for.
well, they didn't do that motion direction, whatever you
It was,
just.
yeah.
Whatever you said, that's what they coming back with.
Right, and I'll provide it to them.
Madam Mayor, what was the vote?
3-2. She said, what was the vote?
When you make a motion direction, whatever's on that, that's why I told you to table it, go with staff, get it in detail, and then come back and do your motion of direction. But that is your motion of direction. 3 to, Melissa Brown, that is your first warning. Please do not disrupt the meeting when we are talking. That was your first warning for interrupting the meeting. You can leave now. I gave you 2 warnings. You can leave. We taking a break now. You can leave. I'm calling this meeting back to order. Ms. Brown, please leave the council meeting. The meeting has been called to order, Madam Secretary.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on to the next item.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. DS 24040, review governing standards.
Thank you. Attorney Clemmons.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. All right, this is your governing standards item. A little bit of background. The governing standards and expectations were originally adopted in June 2018 and revised annually since then. The intent is for the governing standards to serve as a single source reference containing council rules, protocols, procedures, policies, and expectations for itself, committee members, staff, and the public. Under Section 720, that provides that council begins review after the election and then and work to readopt an updated version by the end of July each year. So the proposed changes that we have that have already been directed, and so I have them in the presentation and in the proposed draft document that was in the packet. Section 280 list community events where the city provides in-kind non-monetary services, and on April 16th of this year, there was a motion of direction to add the November 5th Memorial Day event to this list. So this will be formally added when you readopt the governing standards this year. And then the most recent discussion on this regarding council meetings on June 4th of this year, council directed staff to bring back a proposal to change the frequency of council meetings with the review of the governing standards. So that's what we've done. The changes that were discussed and are included in the draft are to combine the work session meetings with regular meetings to meet twice a month on first and third Tuesdays. That work sessions to receive presentations and discuss items would occur prior to the regular session in that same meeting, and agenda packets would be provided to City Council and the public the Tuesday of the week before any regular meeting. And those changes, that's a summary of the changes, but you do see all of the changes in line. There are various references to work sessions and regular meetings that need to be updated to be in line with this, but that's the general direction that I've put into the proposed document. So the alternatives at this point are you may continue discussions for further amendments to the governing standards and expectations, or readopt the governing standards and expectations as amended at a future meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams.
I didn't have nothing right now.
Councilmember Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to make a motion of direction that we would amend the standards as read.
The governing standards and expectation, a motion or direction to accept them as is. Is there a second to the second?
Second.
Of Councilmember Adams. Okay, thank you. Councilman Boyd.
Second?
Oh, did you want to do that? To the second to the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, direction, okay. I apologize. It's Councilmember Solomon made a motion of direction to accept the amendments to our governor's standards and expectations as is. And that motion of direction was seconded by Councilmember Boyd.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, you have something you want to say
can I make
for
an
me?
amendment
Okay, yes, sir.
to add to that time to 4:00 p.m.?
So you want what's 4:00 p.m.?
I mean, to change the frequency of the meetings that we said would be every first and third Tuesday at 5 p.m. I would like to have them change it to 4 p.m.
Okay, so what I'm understanding you just made the motion of direction to
Yes.
accept the governor's standards and expectations as is with a second by Councilmember Boyd, and you want to amend that and say that you want the council meetings on the first and third Tuesday, I'm sorry, to start at 4:00.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that amendment?
Madam Mayor, I have a comment, point of order,
What?
if you will. According to the existing governing standards, if I'm not mistaken, the meeting time for whether it's a workshop or a regular meeting is under the authority of the mayor only.
Is that correct?
That is correct, but if the motion of direction passed to change that to start at 4, then I would make changes to the governing standards.
Sure, I just want to
start
point
at
that
4.
out, just so that everyone's aware.
Okay, so good point, Councilman Boyd, clarification. With the time, if the motion of direction passed for 4:00, then that override the mayor deciding the time of the council meeting. Is that correct?
If that motion of direction passed, then I would make changes to that language that says the mayor sets the time, and I would say 4 p.m. in the document.
Okay. Can I get a second? 'Cause we already went in discussion. I apologize. Second to that motion, Councilman Cigar, to start at 4:00 on Tuesday, first and third Tuesday at 4:00. Well, we need a second to the motion first, direction.
All right, I'll second it.
Okay.
So I can talk.
Yes, sir. That was one of your recommendations to him.
And that's it, that's my point, because I'm with Mr. Solomon, because we're in a workshop right now, and you think about it, right now, we would be taking a break and getting ready to go into a council meeting. And I would consider today's probably a shorter workshop, because we went through those agenda items pretty quick. So I'm in favor of doing it twice a month, as long as we start earlier, because 5 o'clock we'll be here to midnight, and you can see, there's hardly anybody in the audience. And so it doesn't make any sense to have late council meetings and nobody's here, and when we're voting. And so I'm even in favor of doing it earlier. So, but I'm also in favor of the mayor choosing if she does it earlier, but I don't know if she wants that burden on her, because.
Well, you know me, because if it wasn't for, okay, are you finished? I won't cut you off. If it was not for 3 of our council members working, if they okay, we can start at 12 o'clock. Oh, no, that's not good. Okay. We can start at 3 o'clock if everyone's okay. 3 o'clock, everyone?
I like 3.
Okay, so if 3 o'clock is the time, you have to rescind your second, and you have to rescind your amendment, your first on that. And I just set the time.
rescind.
Okay, rescind, you rescinding?
I rescind.
Okay, all right. So with that being said, I would like to start our city council meetings on the first and third Tuesdays at 3 o'clock p.m. First and third Tuesday,
I make that.
I'm sorry, wait a minute.
Are you saying that as,
As the mayor.
okay.
I
So
want-
then there's no motion of direction, if we're
No,
going that
ma'am,
direction.
They rescinded, both of them
Right.
rescinded it. Oh, yes, yes, he received his amendment, but not the one that's, yeah, I got it. All in favor for the motion of direction to leave the governor's standards and expectations as is, raise your hand. 1, Yes, it is. Well, I'm coming back to change mine, because there was a motion, right?
As presented, they're
As
saying.
as presented. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's first and third Tuesday. But now I'm gonna come back, welcome back. So I'm gonna come back and I wanna make a change, and I wanna make the meetings on the first and third Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. Can I say that now? Okay, so we're gonna do it, okay? I mean, I don't know how to get it in black and white. That's what I'm trying to do. Mr. Kaiser, help me.
I would just say, if this motion of direction passes, well, it did, so we will put the changes on the agenda for your council meeting next week. And I would assume we probably start at 5 o'clock, but then going forward, we're meeting twice, and it would be up to you, Mayor, to set the starting time.
So I can just set it now and put it in black and white?
No,
That's why I'm asking legal. Can I just not?
So the governing standards allow you to set the time, so there's no process of how you set the time. But if
3
you want
o'clock.
it in the governing standards, then someone could make the motion and the council could
Okay, now make
go
a
ahead and put it in the
motion of
governing standards to
direction for
start the
3.
time.
To start our
Madam Mayor, I'd
council.
like to,
We got Councilman Solomon
I'd like to make a motion of direction to start at 3.
for our council meetings on the first and
For our council
third
meeting on the first and third
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
monthly,
Monthly.
okay? Second, to the motion? Okay, we got Cobb, Councilwoman Cobb, welcome back. I didn't see you.
Thank you.
All in favor? You know, he's got something to say.
I'm okay with starting at 3, but I think this will restrict the mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, to only doing it at 3. If you want to say you want to do a meeting at 12, we're now locked in at only doing it at 3, right?
City attorney, legal advice.
This will just be for regular meetings. The document still allows for special workshops for anything that you would need to do in addition to your regular meetings that have the work sessions in front of them. And so that we can still have the same language. The mayor can set the time of those. That is in 2 separate places.
Thanks.
Okay,
I'm
all
good
in
to go.
favor of the motion of direction to start our meetings at 3 o'clock? Our regular council meetings on the first and third Tuesday, our monthly 2 meetings at 3 o'clock. All in favor of this motion of direction? I had to get all that in. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4. And count. Okay, that's, okay. Did you vote at all? So that's 5 to 1.
Yes.
Motion carried, motion of direction carried. All right, we can move on to the next item. Madam Secretary. Madam Secretary, next one.
DS 24041, City Manager Review.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Law, Governor Code 551.001, the mayor now calls a closed meeting on the city council on the 18th day of June 2024 at 8:30 p.m. under the following authority. Section 551.074, personal matters. The city council will conduct a city manager quarterly review, which we requested. The public discussion of this matter will not be in the best interest of the city. Agenda item DS 24-041. We are now going into closed meeting, closed session. They can get, I know what you meant when you said that, but you know who I. Let's get it going, let's get it going, I gotta get home. The council is now out of closed session. at 9:02. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Did you get that, Madam Secretary?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, meeting adjourned. All in favor? All in favor. All right, meeting adjourned.